In this video, I'll be explaining the entire timeline of Assassin's Creed in chronological order, covering every major event, conflict, and historical period that shapes this massive franchise. We're going to walk through over 15 main series games, multiple significant DLCs, and the Chronicles trilogy, spanning from the ancient Isu civilization tens of thousands of years before recorded history all the way to the modern-day present. This timeline focuses on main series games and significant DLCs, excluding minor mobile games or non-canonical entries that don't contribute to the core narrative of the Assassin versus Templar conflict. As always, throughout the video, there will be a timeline animation at the bottom of the screen, so you can easily follow along and understand exactly when each event takes place, which is especially important for a franchise this complex where the story jumps between different centuries, different continents, and even different planes of existence. Now, here's something that might surprise you if you've been a fan since the beginning. Did you know the very first Assassin's Creed game you played is actually set thousands of years after the true origin of the conflict? That's right. When you booted up the original Assassin's Creed back in 2007 and stepped into the boots of Altair during the Third Crusade in 1191 AD, you were actually jumping into a war that had been raging since before humanity even existed as we know it today. The roots of everything, the pieces of Eden, the Assassins, the Templars, the entire philosophical battle between free will and control, all of it goes back to a precursor race called the Isu, who walked the earth over 75,000 years ago. But before we get to any of that, we need to explain the setting first, because Assassin's Creed isn't just a historical action series, it's a science fiction narrative wrapped in historical events. And understanding how these layers work together is crucial to making sense of the timeline. The franchise operates on multiple levels of reality simultaneously. You have the historical past where most of the gameplay takes place, featuring assassins and Templars fighting across different eras. You have the modern-day present, where characters use a device called the Animus to relive genetic memories of their ancestors. And you have the Isu timeline, which predates human civilization entirely and sets up the fundamental conflict that echoes through every single game. The Animus is the connective tissue that holds all of this together. It's a machine that reads DNA and allows users to experience the memories encoded in their genetic code, essentially letting them live through the lives of their ancestors. This is the in-universe explanation for why we as players can jump from ancient Greece to Victorian London to Viking Age England. We're not just playing different games, we're experiencing the memories of different people across history, all connected by bloodlines and all tied to the same ancient conflict. The modern-day storyline, which runs parallel to the historical segments, follows various characters who use the Animus to search for powerful artifacts and uncover the truth about humanity's past. In the original games, you played as Desmond Miles, a bartender kidnapped by the Templar-controlled Abstergo Industries and forced to relive his ancestors' memories. Later games shifted to different modern-day protagonists, including unnamed Abstergo employees, a researcher named Layla Hassan, and others, but the core concept remains the same. The past informs the present, and the present seeks answers in the past. Now, the Isu, also called the First Civilization, or those who came before, are the foundation of everything. These were an advanced precursor race who existed on Earth long before Homo sapiens became the dominant species. They were incredibly technologically advanced, possessing knowledge and tools that would seem like magic to humans, and they created humanity itself, but not as equals. Humans were designed to be a servile workforce, literally built to obey the Isu through genetic programming and through artifacts called pieces of Eden, which could control minds and bend reality itself. The Isu civilization thrived for thousands of years, but they made a critical mistake. Two Isu, Adam and Eve, stole a piece of Eden called the apple and used it to free humanity from mental control, sparking a massive human rebellion. This rebellion, combined with a catastrophic solar flare event that the Isu failed to prevent because they were too busy fighting the humans, led to the near-total extinction of both species around 75,000 years ago. Some Isu survived in various forms, their consciousnesses preserved in artifacts or their genetics mixed with human DNA, and some humans survived to rebuild civilization from scratch. The pieces of Eden scattered across the world became objects of legend, power, and worship in every culture that found them. The Apple of Eden, the Shroud of Eden, the Staff of Hermes, the Spear of Leonidas, these artifacts show up throughout history under different names, always granting incredible power to whoever wields them, and always attracting two opposing forces: those who want to use them to control humanity and those who want to destroy them or hide them to preserve human free will. This is where the Assassins and Templars come in, though they didn't always go by those names. The philosophical conflict between freedom and order, chaos and control, has existed since the Isu Era, but the formal organizations we know crystallized over centuries. The Assassins, originally called the Hidden Ones, believe that humanity must be free to make its own choices, even if that means making mistakes, even if that means chaos and conflict. The Templars, originally called the Order of the Ancients, believe that humanity is too flawed and too dangerous to be left to its own devices, and that a guiding hand, their guiding hand, is necessary to create peace and order, even if that means controlling people without their knowledge or consent. Both sides hunt for pieces of Eden, but for opposite reasons. The Templars want to use them to establish a new world order where war, crime, and suffering are eliminated through control. The Assassins want to keep them out of anyone's hands, believing that no one, no matter how well-intentioned, should have that kind of power over others. This conflict plays out across every single game, in every single time period, with different faces and different names, but always the same core struggle. So, when we talk about the Assassin's Creed timeline in chronological order, we're not starting in 1191 with Altair, and we're not starting in 2012 with Desmond Miles. We're starting approximately 77,000 years before the Common Era, in the Isu Era, when the first civilization was at its height and humanity was still in its infancy. This is the period explored through memory corridors, DLC content, and fragmented visions across multiple games, particularly in Assass. Our story begins not in recorded history, but in an age so distant that it exists only in fragments of genetic memory and the ruins of impossible architecture. Around 75,000 years before the Common Era, Earth was not ruled by humans as we know them. Instead, a race of beings known as the Isu, sometimes called the First Civilization or those who came before, held dominion over the planet. These precursors were not gods, though they would be remembered as such. They were flesh and blood, but their technology was so advanced that it would appear magical to modern eyes. They built sprawling cities of gleaming metal and crystal, manipulated the fundamental forces of reality, and extended their lifespans far beyond human limits. But the Isu faced a problem. For all their advancement, they needed labor. They needed workers to build their monuments, to serve in their cities, to fulfill the countless tasks that even an advanced civilization requires. Their solution was audacious and would echo through millennia. Using their mastery of genetics and bioengineering, the Isu created a new species. They took the raw material of Earth's existing primates and reshaped it, crafting beings just intelligent enough to follow complex instructions but docile enough to obey without question. They called this new species humanity. For thousands of years, this system functioned exactly as intended. Humans served, and the Isu prospered. But the Isu had made a critical miscalculation. In their arrogance, they had created a species capable of evolution, of adaptation, of growth, and more importantly, they had created a species capable of breeding with them. Over generations, some Isu took human partners, whether through genuine affection or simple curiosity. The offspring of these unions were hybrids, possessing human bodies but carrying within them a greater concentration of Isu DNA than their purely human cousins. These hybrids had something their enslaved brethren lacked: resistance to the pieces of Eden. The pieces of Eden were the tools through which the Isu maintained control. These artifacts, scattered throughout the Assassin's Creed franchise, were not mere weapons or trinkets. They were instruments of mass manipulation, capable of bending human will, of making slavery seem natural and rebellion unthinkable. But the hybrids, with their mixed heritage, could resist these effects, and two hybrids in particular would change everything. History, mythology, and genetic memory remember them as Adam and Eve, though these were likely not their true names. What matters is what they did. Sometime around 75,000 BC, these two individuals accomplished the impossible. They infiltrated an Isu facility and stole an apple of Eden, one of the most powerful pieces of Eden in existence. With this artifact removed from Isu control, its influence over nearby humans weakened, and in that moment of clarity, humanity saw its chains for what they were. The rebellion that followed was brutal and desperate. Humans vastly outnumbered their creators, but the Isu possessed technology that could level cities and weapons that could kill thousands with a gesture. The war raged across continents, and neither side could gain a decisive advantage. Isu fought to reclaim control of their creation. Humans fought for the simple right to be free. The conflict might have continued for generations, grinding both species into extinction through sheer attrition. But then the sky itself intervened. The Isu, for all their knowledge, had ignored the warnings in their own calculations. They had been so consumed by the war with humanity that they failed to prepare for a threat from beyond Earth. A massive solar flare, an eruption of radiation and electromagnetic fury from the sun, struck the planet with devastating force. This event, which modern geology knows as the Toba catastrophe, was an extinction-level event. It scorched the surface, triggered volcanic eruptions, and plunged the world into years of volcanic winter. The Isu civilization, concentrated in their great cities, was effectively destroyed. Their numbers, already small compared to humanity, dwindled to almost nothing. Humanity fared only slightly better. Of the millions who had lived before the catastrophe, only a few thousand survived, scattered across the ravaged world. The war ended not with victory for either side, but with mutual devastation. In the chaos of the dying Isu civilization, one member of the first civilization made a final, desperate play for immortality. Juno, a scientist and manipulator of extraordinary skill, had been working on a solution to the solar flare threat. But her true goal was far more personal. She had discovered a method to transfer her consciousness, her very essence, into a digital form that could later inhabit a human body. This would allow her to survive the death of her species and rule over humanity in the ages to come. But Juno's husband, Aita, and her colleagues, Minerva and Jupiter, discovered her plan. They recognized the danger she represented. A being with Isu knowledge and human adaptability, freed from the constraints of morality or empathy, would be a tyrant beyond measure. In the final days of their civilization, Minerva and Jupiter managed to trap Juno, sealing her consciousness away in the very technology she had hoped would be her salvation. She would remain imprisoned there, aware but powerless, for over 70,000 years. The Isu Era had ended. The age of humanity was about to begin. Tens of thousands of years pass. Humanity rises from the ashes of the Toba catastrophe, spreading across the globe, building civilizations, all while carrying within them the genetic legacy of their Isu creators. By 431 BC, in the sun-drenched lands of ancient Greece, that legacy is about to manifest in ways that will reshape the secret war between order and freedom for millennia to come. Our story begins not with glory, but with tragedy. A Spartan family stands at the edge of a cliff on Mount Taygetos, bound by law and prophecy to make an impossible choice. The Oracle of Delphi, corrupted by forces they do not yet understand, has declared that one of their children must die to save Sparta. The infant, Alexios, is hurled from the mountain. His older sister, Cassandra, tries desperately to save him, and in the chaos, she too plummets over the edge. Their father, Nikolaos, a respected Spartan general, is left to return home in disgrace. Their mother, Mirin, flees in grief. In a single moment, an entire family is shattered. But Cassandra survives. Battered, alone, and exiled from the only home she has ever known, she is found and raised on the island of Kephallonia. She grows into a formidable warrior, a misthios, the Greek word for mercenary. By the time the Peloponnesian War erupts between Athens and Sparta in 431 BC, Cassandra has learned to rely on no one but herself, taking contracts, fighting for coin, and asking few questions about the larger forces shaping the Greek world. Everything changes when a simple job goes catastrophically wrong. Cassandra is tasked with assassinating a man called the Wolf of Sparta. When she finally confronts him, she discovers the terrible truth. The wolf is Nikolaos, the father who threw her from the mountain all those years ago. The reunion is tense, violent, and laden with years of pain. But through their confrontation, Cassandra learns something crucial. The oracle's prophecy, the command that destroyed her family, was not divine will. It was manipulation. Someone, some organization, had corrupted the oracle and engineered her family's destruction. This revelation sets Cassandra on a path that will take her across the entire Greek world. She learns of an ancient conspiracy called the Cult of Cosmos, a shadowy network of politicians, generals, merchants, and priests who have infiltrated every level of Greek society. The cult believes in absolute order, in controlling humanity's destiny through manipulation and fear. They are, in essence, the ideological ancestors of the Templar Order, though that name will not emerge for centuries. Where the Isu sought to control through genetic programming, the Cult of Cosmos seeks control through social engineering, pulling the strings of wars, economies, and religions. Cassandra begins to hunt them. One by one, she uncovers the identities of cult members hidden behind masks and false names. She discovers that they have been orchestrating the Peloponnesian War itself, prolonging the conflict to weaken the Greek city-states and make them easier to control. The war you might have studied in history class, the clash between Athenian democracy and Spartan militarism, is revealed to be, at least in part, a manufactured crisis. As she dismantles the cult's network, Cassandra also searches for her scattered family. She learns that her mother, Mirin, is alive and has become a leader on the island of Naxos. The reunion is emotional but complicated. Mirin has spent years building a new life, haunted by the loss of her children. Together, mother and daughter begin to piece together what really happened on Mount Taygetos and why. The search eventually leads to the most shocking discovery of all. Alexios, the infant brother Cassandra tried to save, also survived the fall. But while Cassandra was raised in relative freedom, Alexios was found by the Cult of Cosmos. They raised him, twisted him, and transformed him into their ultimate weapon, a brutal enforcer known as Deimos. The cult has been using him for years, sending him to kill their enemies and terrorize those who resist. When Cassandra finally faces him, she is confronting not just an enemy, but her own brother, corrupted and lost. The confrontation with Deimos forces Cassandra to grapple with impossible questions. Can someone so thoroughly indoctrinated be saved? Is her brother still in there somewhere, or has the cult destroyed everything he might have been? The answers depend on the choices Cassandra makes, the mercy or vengeance she shows, but the core truth remains. The Cult of Cosmos does not just seek to control society. They seek to control individuals, to break them down and rebuild them as tools. As Cassandra digs deeper into the cult's origins, she uncovers an even more profound mystery. She has always been an exceptional fighter, faster and stronger than she should be, able to survive wounds that would kill ordinary people. She has carried with her since childhood a broken spear, a family heirloom passed down through generations. It is the spear of Leonidas, the weapon carried by her ancestor, the legendary Spartan king who died at Thermopylae. But this is no ordinary relic. It is a piece of Eden, an Isu artifact, and it resonates with her in ways it would not with anyone else. Cassandra learns the truth of her bloodline. She is a descendant of Leonidas, yes, but his significance goes far deeper than his heroic last stand. Leonidas himself carried Isu DNA, part of the genetic legacy left behind when the first civilization interbred with humanity. That legacy has been passed down through the generations, growing stronger until it manifests fully in Cassandra. She is what the modern assassins and Templars will later call a sage or a hybrid, someone with an unusually high concentration of Isu genes. This is why she can wield the spear. This is why she heals so quickly, why she can perform feats that seem superhuman. In a very real sense, she is a bridge between the ancient world of the Isu and the human world of her time. The cult of Cosmos knows this. They have been searching for individuals like Cassandra for generations, hoping to harness Isu bloodlines for their own purposes. Deimos, too, carries this genetic gift, which is why the cult invested so much in corrupting him. The entire conspiracy, the manipulation of the Oracle, the destruction of Cassandra's family was an attempt to control these living links to the Isu. Cassandra's journey culminates in the elimination of the cult's inner circle and the exposure of its mysterious leader. The revelation of who has been orchestrating everything sends shockwaves through the Greek world. But even with the cult dismantled, Cassandra's story is not over. She is led to a hidden Isu temple, a place of impossible technology and ancient power. There, she encounters something extraordinary. An Isu named Pythagoras, who is, impossibly, still alive after more than 400 years. He is her grandfather, sustained by another piece of Eden, the staff of Hermes Trismegistus. Pythagoras explains the truth. The staff grants its wielder immortality, stopping the aging process entirely, but it comes with a burden. Someone must always be its keeper, guarding it from those who would misuse its power. Pythagoras has carried this responsibility for centuries, but he is tired. He passes the staff to Cassandra, making her its new guardian. In doing so, he condemns her to an immortal life. Watching ages pass, civilizations rise and fall, everyone she loves growing old and dying while she remains unchanged. Cassandra accepts the burden. Over the following centuries, she will walk through history, always watching, occasionally intervening, but mostly alone. She will hide the staff away, sealing it in a place where it cannot be found, where it cannot corrupt or be corrupted. And she will wait. She will wait for more than 2,000 years, until the year 2018, when a woman named Layla Hassan, an Abstergo scientist turned assassin ally, will finally find her way to that hidden place. Only then will Cassandra's vigil end, the staff pass to a new keeper, and her long, lonely watch finally complete. But that meeting lies far in the future. For now, in 422 BC, Cassandra seals the staff away and begins her immortal journey, carrying with her the knowledge of the Isu, the memory of the cult of Cosmos, and the understanding that the war between order and freedom is far from over. 4 centuries after the events of the Peloponnesian War, we arrive in Egypt during one of its most turbulent periods. The year is 49 BC, and the land of the pharaohs has become a battleground for both political power and personal vengeance. This is where we meet Bayek of Siwa, the last Medjay in Egypt. The Medjay were an ancient order of protectors who served the pharaohs and defended the people, though by this time their tradition had faded into legend. Bayek carries this dying legacy with him, but his journey begins not with duty, but with grief. His young son, Khemu, has been murdered, and Bayek will stop at nothing to find those responsible and make them pay. What starts as a quest for revenge quickly transforms into something far greater. As Bayek hunts down each of the masked figures who killed his son, he begins to uncover the existence of a vast conspiracy. These men are not random criminals. They belong to the Order of the Ancients, a shadowy organization that has embedded itself deep within Egyptian society. The Order seeks to control Egypt from behind the scenes, manipulating its leaders and shaping its future according to their vision of order through domination. This is the same ideology we saw with the cult of Cosmos in Greece. And indeed, the Order of the Ancients represents an earlier incarnation of what will eventually become the Templar Order. The Order's members hide behind masks and operate through intermediaries, making them difficult to track. But Bayek is relentless. Each target he eliminates brings him closer to the truth about his son's death and the Order's ultimate goals. He discovers that the Order is searching for ancient Isu artifacts, particularly a vault beneath the Temple of Amun in Siwa, Bayek's own hometown. It was during the Order's attempt to force Bayek to open this vault that Khemu was accidentally killed, a tragedy that haunts Bayek throughout his journey. Bayek does not fight alone. His wife, Aya, is equally driven by the loss of their son. Where Bayek operates in the deserts and cities of Egypt proper, Aya moves in the political circles of Alexandria and Rome. She is a skilled warrior in her own right, but her greatest strength lies in her strategic mind and her connections to the powerful. Aya becomes instrumental in supporting Cleopatra's claim to the Egyptian throne, believing that the young queen will restore Egypt to its former glory and help them destroy the Order of the Ancients. At this point in history, Egypt is caught between its own traditions and the growing power of Rome. Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy XXX are locked in a civil war for control of the kingdom. Julius Caesar arrives in Egypt pursuing his rival Pompey, and suddenly the fate of Egypt becomes entangled with the fate of Rome itself. Aya sees opportunity in this chaos. She helps arrange the famous meeting between Cleopatra and Caesar, the one where legend says Cleopatra had herself smuggled into Caesar's presence, rolled up in a carpet. With Caesar's support, Cleopatra defeats her brother and takes the throne. For a time, it seems Bayek and Aya have found powerful allies. They work alongside Cleopatra and Caesar, believing these leaders will help them dismantle the order of the ancients and bring justice to Egypt. Bayek continues his hunt across the breadth of Egypt, from the lush Nile Delta to the harsh deserts, from the grand cities of Memphis and Alexandria to forgotten tombs and ancient temples. Each member of the order he eliminates reveals more about their structure and their plans. But as Cleopatra consolidates her power, the truth becomes clear. She has been using Bayek and Aya all along. Rather than opposing the order of the ancients, Cleopatra makes peace with them, seeing them as useful tools for maintaining her rule. The queen they fought to crown has betrayed everything they believed in. This betrayal cuts deeper than any blade. Bayek and Aya realize that they cannot trust kings and queens to bring about the change the world needs. The powerful will always compromise with other powerful forces to maintain their positions. This moment of betrayal becomes the crucible in which something new is forged. If they cannot rely on existing power structures, they must create something different. Something that operates outside the hierarchies of empire and dynasty. In 43 BC, Bayek and Aya formally established the Hidden Ones, a brotherhood dedicated to fighting tyranny and protecting free will. This is the true birth of the Assassin Brotherhood, though they do not yet call themselves assassins. That name will come later, centuries down the line. The Hidden Ones adopt a creed that will echo through the millennia. They commit themselves to staying hidden, to working in the shadows where tyrants cannot see them coming. They vow to protect the innocent and strike down those who would enslave humanity. Most importantly, they recognize that this fight will not end in their lifetimes. The Order of the Ancients is too vast, too deeply rooted. The Hidden Ones must become a permanent organization, passing their mission from one generation to the next. Bayek and Aya's personal relationship does not survive the founding of the Hidden Ones. The death of their son and the weight of their mission has changed them both too much. Aya takes a new name, Amunet, symbolizing her rebirth into this new purpose. She travels to Rome to establish the Hidden Ones there, getting close to the centers of power. Bayek remains in Egypt, building the organization's presence across the land and training new recruits in the ways of the Hidden Ones. The Hidden Ones develop the tools and techniques that will define the Assassin Brotherhood. The Hidden Blade, that iconic weapon worn beneath the wrist, becomes their signature. The Leap of Faith, that death-defying dive into hay or water, becomes both an escape technique and a test of conviction. They learn to blend into crowds, to strike without warning, to leave no trace. They establish bureaus in major cities where Hidden Ones can find shelter, information, and supplies. What began as one man's quest for vengeance has transformed into a movement that will shape history for the next 2,000 years. The Hidden Ones represent the true beginning of the Assassin Brotherhood's war against the Templars, a war that will be fought in every era and every corner of the world. And it all started here, in ancient Egypt, with a father's grief and a refusal to let tyranny go unchallenged. Nearly 800 years after the events in Egypt, we arrive in the year 872 AD, at the height of the Viking Age. The Hidden Ones have continued their work across the centuries, though their presence has become fragmented and their methods adapted to the changing world. Meanwhile, the Order of the Ancients persists in its own transformation, still seeking control through manipulation of power structures. It is in this era of Norse expansion and Anglo-Saxon kingdoms that we meet Eivor Varinsdottir, a fierce Viking raider whose story will blur the lines between mortal ambition and ancient destiny. Eivor's tale begins in the harsh fjords of Norway, where she was orphaned as a child during a brutal attack led by the warlord Kjotve the Cruel. This trauma left her not only without parents, but also marked with a distinctive scar across her neck, a permanent reminder of the violence that shaped her early years. Raised by King Styrbjorn after her parents' death, Eivor grew up alongside his son Sigurd, forming a bond so strong that they considered themselves siblings in all but blood. Together, they became formidable warriors, earning respect among their clan through raids and battle prowess. By 872 AD, Norway has become a land of consolidating power under Harald Fairhair, who seeks to unite the fractious clans under a single crown. This unification comes at a cost, forcing many jarls and their followers to choose between bending the knee or seeking fortune elsewhere. Sigurd, having recently returned from travels abroad with new allies and strange ideas, convinces Eivor and their adoptive father that their future lies not in Norway but across the North Sea in England. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms there are wealthy, divided, and ripe for settlement. More importantly for Sigurd, England represents an opportunity to forge his own legacy, free from Harold's shadow. The journey to England marks a turning point. Eivor, leading a significant portion of their clan's warriors, establishes a new settlement along the river in Ravensthorpe, a modest collection of buildings that will grow into a thriving community. This is not merely a raiding base, but a genuine attempt to create a permanent home in a foreign land. The settlement becomes the operational heart of Eivor's activities, requiring constant attention, resources, and diplomatic maneuvering to maintain. England in this period is a patchwork of four major kingdoms: Wessex, Mercia, East Anglia, and Northumbria. Each has its own rulers, ambitions, and internal conflicts. Eivor quickly learns that success in this new land requires more than martial skill. She must forge alliances, navigate complex political situations, and understand the intricate web of loyalties and betrayals that define Anglo-Saxon politics. Through a combination of military aid, strategic marriages, and careful diplomacy, Eivor pledges her clan's support to various nobles and kings, slowly building a network of influence that strengthens Ravensthorpe's position. It is through these political entanglements that Eivor encounters two organizations that will prove central to her story. The first is the Hidden Ones, the direct predecessors to the Assassin Brotherhood you might know from later centuries. By this time, the Hidden Ones have established a bureau in England, though their numbers are few and their influence limited. They still operate according to the creed established by Bayek centuries earlier, working from the shadows to protect free will and oppose tyranny. The second organization is their eternal enemy, the Order of the Ancients, which has deeply infiltrated Anglo-Saxon society, placing members in positions of power throughout the kingdoms. The Hidden Ones, led in England by the determined Hytham after his mentor Basim's arrival with Sigurd, recognize in Eivor a valuable ally. Though Eivor never formally joins the Hidden Ones, she agrees to help them identify and eliminate members of the Order of the Ancients. This partnership proves mutually beneficial. Eivor gains intelligence and support for her political maneuvering, while the Hidden Ones gain a powerful warrior willing to strike at targets they cannot easily reach themselves. As Eivor pursues these Order members across England, a pattern emerges. The Order has been systematically positioning itself to control the future of England, supporting certain rulers while undermining others, all in service of their ancient goal of bringing order through control. At the center of their web sits a mysterious figure known only as the Father, whose identity remains hidden even from many Order members. Parallel to these conflicts, something stranger begins to manifest in Eivor's life. She experiences vivid visions and dreams of another existence, memories that feel both foreign and intimately familiar. These are not mere fantasies, but glimpses of a past life as Odin, the All-Father of Norse mythology. Except, Odin was not a god, but an Isu, one of the first civilization beings who ruled Earth before humanity's rise. Through advanced Isu technology, Odin and several other Isu attempted to survive the Great Catastrophe by encoding their consciousness into human DNA, allowing them to be reborn in future generations. Eivor is one such reincarnation, carrying within her genetic code the memories and personality of Odin himself. This revelation, which unfolds gradually through mystical experiences in Asgard and Jotunheim, represents a profound challenge to Eivor's sense of self. Is she merely a vessel for an ancient being, or can she forge her own path despite this cosmic inheritance? The game explores this question through sequences where you experience Odin's final days before the catastrophe, witnessing his desperate attempts to cheat death and his complex relationships with other Isu who would also be reborn. This personal crisis intensifies when Eivor discovers that Sigurd too is an Isu reincarnation. He carries the memories of Tyr, an Isu who was closely associated with Odin. This knowledge transforms Sigurd's personality, feeding an already substantial ego with delusions of divine destiny. He becomes obsessed with Isu artifacts and the idea that he is meant for something greater than merely leading a clan. His behavior grows increasingly erratic and arrogant, straining his relationships with Eivor and others. Sigurd's obsession leads him into danger when he and Eivor discover a hidden Isu temple. His reckless actions and grandiose claims eventually result in his capture and imprisonment by Fulk, a sadistic member of the Order of the Ancients who seeks to understand and exploit the Isu connection. Fulk subjects Sigurd to torture and experimentation, severing his arm and attempting to unlock the secrets of his genetic memory. Eivor mounts a desperate rescue, but the Sigurd she saves is changed, traumatized and even more convinced of his special nature, yet also broken by his ordeal. The relationship between Eivor and Sigurd becomes one of the emotional cores of the narrative. Eivor must balance loyalty to her adoptive brother with the needs of the clan and her own judgment. Depending on her choices throughout the story, Sigurd either remains in Ravensthorpe to lead alongside Eivor or abandons England entirely, leaving Eivor as the sole Jarl. Meanwhile, the hunt for the father of the Order leads Eivor to an unexpected revelation. The mysterious leader is none other than Alfred, the future Alfred the Great, King of Wessex. Alfred represents a fascinating complexity in the Assassin's Creed narrative. Unlike most Order members, he is not motivated by personal power or cruelty. Instead, he genuinely believes that England needs strong, centralized control to survive the Viking invasions and internal strife. He sees the Order as a tool to achieve peace and prosperity, even if it requires manipulation and the suppression of individual freedom. When Eivor finally confronts Alfred in 878 AD, he has already begun transforming the Order of the Ancients into something new. Rather than fight to the death, Alfred proposes a restructuring, purging the Order of its most corrupt elements and reforming it with a new purpose and a new name, the Templar Order. This marks a crucial moment in the eternal conflict. the formal birth of the organization that will oppose the assassins for the next 1,000 years. Alfred's vision ultimately succeeds. He becomes one of England's greatest kings, defending his realm and laying the groundwork for a unified English nation. The Templars, though they will evolve considerably over the centuries, trace their philosophical and organizational lineage directly to this moment. Eivor's story concludes not with a grand battle, but with choices about identity and purpose. She must decide whether to embrace or resist Odin's influence, whether to pursue leadership or a simpler life, and what legacy she wishes to leave. Her saga demonstrates that even those touched by ancient powers can forge their own destiny, that the human will can assert itself even against the designs of beings who once ruled the world. 2 centuries after Eivor's journey through England and the fall of the Order of the Ancients in Scandinavia, we find ourselves in the heart of the Islamic Golden Age. The year is 861 AD, and our story now takes us to Baghdad, the jewel of the Abbasid Caliphate, a city of unparalleled learning, culture, and commerce. Here, amid the bustling markets and towering minarets, we meet Basim ibn Ishaq, a cunning street thief whose destiny will prove far greater and stranger than he could ever imagine. Basim is not content with his life in the shadows of Baghdad's streets. He is haunted by visions he cannot explain, fragmented memories that feel both alien and intimately his own. These nightmares plague him, showing him places and people from a time before time, but he dismisses them as the fevered dreams of a troubled mind. What he cannot dismiss is his skill. Basim possesses an almost supernatural talent for stealth, for reading people, for moving through the city as though he were a ghost. These abilities will soon catch the attention of an organization that has been operating in secret for over 2,000 years. After a theft gone wrong leads to consequences that threaten not just Basim but those he cares about, he comes into contact with the Hidden Ones, the direct predecessors of the Assassin Brotherhood. In this era, the Hidden Ones still operate much as Bayek and Amenet established them in Egypt, dedicated to fighting tyranny and protecting free will. A master assassin named Roshan sees potential in the young thief, potential that goes beyond mere talent. She offers him a choice: continue his aimless existence in the streets or join a cause greater than himself. Basim accepts, though his motivations are not entirely pure. He seeks purpose, yes, but he also seeks answers to the visions that torment him. He wants to understand why he feels this persistent, gnawing sense that he is meant for something more. Under Roshan's strict and often harsh tutelage, Basim begins his transformation from street thief to hidden one. The training is brutal. Roshan is a demanding mentor who accepts nothing less than perfection, and she sees in Basim both great promise and great danger. There is something about him she cannot quite place, a quality that makes her wary even as she teaches him the creed. Over the course of several years, Basim rises through the ranks of the Brotherhood. He masters the techniques that define the Hidden Ones: the leap of faith, the hidden blade, the art of blending into crowds and striking from the shadows. But more than the physical skills, he learns the philosophy. Stay your blade from the flesh of an innocent. Hide in plain sight. Never compromise the Brotherhood. These tenets become his guiding principles, though the visions continue to complicate his sense of self. By 870 AD, Basim has become one of the Hidden One's most capable operatives in Baghdad. It is during this time that he uncovers whispers of a conspiracy, one that reaches into the highest levels of the Abbasid Caliphate. The Order of the Ancients, that ancient enemy of freedom that the Hidden Ones have fought for centuries, has embedded itself within the power structures of Baghdad. They manipulate caliphs, control trade routes, and pull strings from the shadows to consolidate their vision of order and control. Basim's investigation takes him deep into the political intrigue of the Caliphate. He discovers that several key figures in the government, merchants who control the city's wealth, and even some religious leaders are members of the order. They are working toward a goal that Basim initially struggles to comprehend, something involving Isu artifacts hidden beneath the city. These pieces of Eden, remnants of the precursor civilization that came before humanity, hold power that the order seeks to exploit. As Basim delves deeper into the conspiracy, his visions intensify. He begins to see not just fragments but full memories of another life, another existence. He sees a figure, an Isu being of immense power and cunning, trapped and betrayed. He sees a name: Loki. The trickster god of Norse mythology was not merely a myth but an Isu, one of the Aesir, and somehow these memories belong to Basim. The realization comes slowly, then all at once. Basim is not simply himself. He is a sage, a reincarnation of an Isu consciousness, specifically that of Loki, the Isu who sought revenge against Odin and the others who imprisoned his children. This revelation shakes Basim to his core. The visions were never madness. They were memories bleeding through from a consciousness thousands of years old, a consciousness that has been waiting, dormant, for the right vessel. Basim must now confront the reality that his entire sense of self may be an illusion, that he may simply be a vessel for an ancient being with its own agenda. The internal struggle becomes as dangerous as any external enemy. Who is he truly? Is he Basim, the street thief who became a hidden one, or is he Loki, an Isu seeking to complete a millennia-old vendetta? Despite this internal turmoil, Basim continues his mission against the Order of the Ancients. Perhaps it is the part of him that is still Basim, still loyal to the Creed. Or perhaps it is Loki, seeing the Order as an obstacle to his own goals. Regardless of the motivation, Basim systematically dismantles the Order's network in Baghdad. He eliminates key members, disrupts their operations, and destroys their plans to use the Isu artifacts hidden in the city. Each assassination is carried out with precision and skill, but also with a growing coldness that worries Roshan. His mentor begins to see the change in him, the way his eyes sometimes seem to look through people rather than at them, the way he speaks of things he should not know. The relationship between master and student becomes strained. Roshan fears what Basim is becoming, even if she does not fully understand it. She knows only that the young man she trained is being consumed by something ancient and dangerous. Basim's efforts culminate in a final confrontation with the leadership of the Order in Baghdad. He succeeds in his mission, striking a significant blow against the Ancients' influence in the region. The Hidden Ones celebrate this victory, but for Basim, it is merely a stepping stone. The Loki consciousness within him has grown stronger, more dominant. He now understands what he must do, what he has been working toward across centuries of reincarnation. He must find Odin's Sage, the reincarnation of his ancient enemy. He must complete his revenge. This quest will eventually lead him north to the lands of the Vikings, to a fateful meeting with a warrior named Eivor, though that encounter still lies in Basim's future. For now, in 870 AD, he leaves Baghdad behind, a master assassin with the memories and purpose of a god. Roughly 3.5 centuries later, in the year 1191 AD, during the height of the Third Crusade, we arrive at what many consider the cornerstone of the Assassin's Creed saga. This is where most players first entered the Animus, where the modern struggle between assassins and Templars truly began to take shape, and where one arrogant master assassin would learn humility, uncover betrayal, and ultimately reshape the Brotherhood forever. Our protagonist is Altair ibn Lahad, whose name means the bird son of no one in Arabic. At the story's opening, Altair stands as one of the most skilled operatives in the Levantine Brotherhood, a master assassin operating out of the fortress of Masyaf in present-day Syria. He is talented, deadly, and unfortunately, dangerously overconfident. This arrogance will cost him dearly. The game opens with a mission to retrieve a powerful artifact from Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Altair is accompanied by 2 fellow assassins, but his recklessness and disregard for the 3 core tenets of the Creed lead to disaster. These tenets, which you'll hear repeated throughout the series, are simple but vital. Stay your blade from the flesh of an innocent, hide in plain sight, and never compromise the Brotherhood. Altair breaks all 3. His impulsive actions alert the Templar forces guarding the temple, led by Robert de Sablé, the Grand Master of the Templar Order. The mission fails catastrophically. One of Altair's companions is killed, and the artifact, a mysterious object called the Apple of Eden, remains in Templar hands. When Altair returns to Masyaf, he faces the judgment of Al-Mualim, the wise and elderly mentor of the Assassin Brotherhood. Al-Mualim has led the Levantine assassins for decades, and his word is absolute law within the order. For his failures and his arrogance, Altair is stripped of his rank and symbolically killed, then reborn as a novice. It's a devastating fall from grace, but Al-Mualim offers him a path to redemption. Altair must prove himself worthy by assassinating 9 key figures, men whose actions are prolonging the brutal conflict of the Third Crusade and causing untold suffering across the Holy Land. These 9 targets are spread across 3 major cities, Jerusalem, Acre, and Damascus. Each represents a different facet of power during this era, from corrupt merchants and slave traders to fanatical religious leaders and military commanders. Al-Mualim explains that these men are obstacles to peace, and that by eliminating them, Altair will help end the crusade and restore balance to the region. With each assassination, Altair will earn back a portion of his former rank and abilities. What follows is a methodical journey of investigation and execution. Altair travels to each city, gathering intelligence from informants, eavesdropping on guards, pickpocketing documents, and interrogating those connected to his targets. This structure, this rhythm of investigation leading to assassination, would become the template for much of the series. You climb viewpoints to synchronize and reveal the map. You blend with scholars to move undetected through hostile territory, and you plan your approach to each kill. But something strange begins to happen. With each target Altair eliminates, he engages them in their final moments, and these dying men speak cryptically. They don't beg for mercy or curse him. Instead, they speak of a greater plan, of unity and order, of bringing peace through control. They speak as if they're part of something larger, something Altair doesn't understand. Each assassination raises more questions than it answers. These men, supposedly enemies of one another, seem to share a common goal. They speak of the Master, and hint that Altair is being used as a pawn. As Altair progresses through his list, he begins to change. The arrogant master assassin who broke the tenets becomes thoughtful, questioning, humble. He starts to see the Creed not as restrictions, but as wisdom. He questions his orders, something the old Altair would never have done. and he begins to suspect that Al-Mualim, his mentor and the man he trusts above all others, is hiding something. The conspiracy deepens when Altair discovers that his targets were all members of a secret organization, the Templar Order, and that they sought to use pieces of Eden, ancient artifacts of immense power, to control humanity. The Apple of Eden that Robert de Sablé sought in Solomon's temple is one such artifact, capable of creating illusions and bending people to the wielder's will. These pieces of Eden are remnants of the Isu, though Altair doesn't yet understand their true origin. To him, they are simply objects of terrible power that must not fall into the wrong hands. After eliminating 8 of the 9 targets, Altair confronts Robert de Sablé himself, the Grand Master of the Templars and the man responsible for the failed mission at Solomon's Temple. Their confrontation takes place before King Richard the Lionheart and his assembled forces. In a dramatic twist, Altair reveals that Robert has been manipulating both sides of the crusade, and the two engage in combat. Altair emerges victorious, but Robert's dying words shake him to his core. The Templar Grand Master reveals that there is a 10th target, one Altair never suspected. The true leader of the Templar conspiracy is none other than Al-Mualim himself. Altair rushes back to Masyaf to find his mentor has used the Apple of Eden to enslave the minds of the assassins and the villagers. Al-Mualim reveals his grand design. He orchestrated everything. He sent Altair to eliminate the other Templars, not to bring peace, but to eliminate his rivals for control of the Apple. Al-Mualim believes that humanity is too weak, too chaotic, and that free will itself is the source of all conflict. With the Apple, he can create a paradise, a world without war or suffering, but also a world without choice. This is the fundamental ideological split that will define Assassins versus Templars for millennia. The Templars seek peace through order and control. The Assassins fight for freedom, even if that freedom means chaos and conflict. Al-Mualim has betrayed everything the creed stands for. Altair fights through the mind-controlled assassins, resisting the Apple's illusions through sheer will, and confronts his former master. The battle is as much philosophical as physical. In the end, Altair strikes down Al-Mualim and claims the Apple of Eden. As he activates it, the artifact projects a holographic map, showing the locations of other pieces of Eden scattered across the globe, a mystery that will drive the series forward. With Al-Mualim dead, Altair ibn Lahad becomes the new mentor of the Levantine Assassin Brotherhood. The arrogant master has become a wise leader, one who will spend the rest of his long life studying the Apple, recording his findings in a journal called the Codex, and reshaping the Assassin Order into something stronger. Nearly 70 years after Ezio's ancestor Domenico fought at Monteriggioni, we arrive in Renaissance Italy in the year 1476. The setting shifts from the Holy Land to the vibrant, culturally rich cities of Florence, Venice, and Rome. This is where we meet Ezio Auditore da Firenze, perhaps the most beloved protagonist in the entire franchise, whose journey from carefree nobleman to master assassin would span decades and define what it means to walk the path of the Brotherhood. Ezio's story begins not with hidden blades and rooftop chases, but with tragedy. Born into a wealthy Florentine banking family, the young Ezio lives a life of privilege, completely unaware of his father Giovanni's secret role as an assassin. Giovanni has been investigating a conspiracy within Florence, gathering evidence of Templar infiltration at the highest levels of the city's government. When Giovanni entrusts this evidence to a supposed ally, Uberto Alberti, the Gonfaloniere of Florence, he believes justice will be served. Instead, Uberto himself, a Templar, betrays the Auditore family completely. In a single devastating moment, Ezio's world collapses. His father and 2 brothers, Federico and Petruccio, are arrested on false charges of treason. Despite Giovanni's evidence proving their innocence, Uberto condemns them to death. Ezio watches helplessly as his father and brothers are hanged in the Piazza della Signoria. The execution is public, brutal, and designed to send a message. The Auditore name is destroyed. Everything Ezio knew, everything he took for granted, is ripped away in an instant. Ezio escapes Florence with his mother Maria and sister Claudia, fleeing to the Tuscan town of Monteriggioni. This fortified villa is home to his uncle Mario Auditore, a man Ezio barely knows. It is here that Ezio learns the truth about his family's hidden legacy. Mario reveals that the Auditores have been assassins for generations, protectors of free will standing against Templar control. Giovanni's death was not random persecution, but a calculated strike by the Templar Order to eliminate a threat. Mario takes it upon himself to train Ezio, to transform this angry, grief-stricken young man into something more than a simple revenge seeker. The training is rigorous. Ezio learns the techniques that define the Assassin Brotherhood: free-running across rooftops, blending into crowds, striking from the shadows, and, of course, wielding the iconic hidden blade. Mario gifts Ezio his father's hidden blade, a weapon that becomes an extension of Ezio's very identity. But Mario teaches more than combat skills. He introduces Ezio to the assassin philosophy, the understanding that their fight is not merely personal, but part of a war that has raged for millennia. The Templars seek to control humanity, believing order and dominance will bring peace. The assassins fight to preserve freedom, even when that freedom leads to chaos. Ezio's initial targets are those directly responsible for his family's execution. He tracks down and assassinates Uberto Alberti, claiming his first true kill as an assassin. But this act of vengeance reveals something larger. Uberto was merely one piece of a vast network. The conspiracy extends far beyond Florence, reaching into every major city in Italy. The Pazzi family, rivals to the Medici, are deeply involved, and behind them lurks an even greater threat, the Borgia family. As Ezio pursues his targets across Italy, visiting Florence, San Gimignano, Forlì, Venice, and Rome, he uncovers the scope of the Templar plan. The conspiracy involves bankers, merchants, politicians, military leaders, and clergy. Each assassination brings Ezio closer to the truth, but also deeper into the centuries-old conflict. He is no longer simply avenging his family. He is actively dismantling Templar operations throughout the Italian peninsula. During his journey, Ezio encounters key allies who shape his path. Leonardo da Vinci, the brilliant inventor and artist, becomes a close friend, decoding pages from the Codex, an ancient manuscript written by Altair ibn Lahad himself. These Codex pages contain assassin wisdom and technical knowledge, including upgrades to Ezio's hidden blade and other tools. Leonardo's inventions, inspired by the Codex, give Ezio advantages like a hidden gun, poison blade, and even a primitive flying machine. Their friendship grounds Ezio, reminding him of the humanity he fights to protect. Ezio also meets Caterina Sforza, the fierce ruler of Forlì, and Niccolò Machiavelli, a fellow assassin and tactical genius. These relationships are not merely functional. They represent the network of resistance against Templar control, individuals from different backgrounds united by a common cause. Through them, Ezio learns that the Brotherhood is not a solitary path, but a collective effort spanning nations and generations. The conspiracy's architect reveals himself as Rodrigo Borgia, a Spanish cardinal with ruthless ambition. Rodrigo is not content with mere political power. He seeks something far more dangerous, a piece of Eden, specifically the Apple of Eden that Ezio's father had been tracking. The apple is one of several advanced technological artifacts created by the Isu, the first civilization, capable of controlling human minds on a massive scale. Rodrigo believes that possessing the apple will allow him to access a mysterious vault beneath the Vatican, a site of immense power mentioned in Isu prophecies. By 1488, Rodrigo has consolidated enough power and influence to orchestrate his election as Pope Alexander VI. This is not a spiritual appointment, but a calculated seizure of one of the most powerful positions in the world. As Pope, Rodrigo commands armies, controls vast wealth, and holds moral authority over millions. He uses this position to further Templar goals, corrupting the church from within and turning it into an instrument of control. Ezio spends years working to counter Rodrigo's influence, assassinating his allies and disrupting his plans. The conflict becomes deeply personal. Rodrigo is not just another Templar. He represents everything Ezio has fought against, the embodiment of corruption, manipulation, and the hunger for absolute power. The chase for the apple leads Ezio through political intrigue, battles, and betrayals, each step bringing him closer to confrontation. In 1499, Ezio finally confronts Rodrigo Borgia in the Vatican itself. The battle is brutal, two men representing opposing philosophies clashing in the heart of Christendom. Ezio defeats Rodrigo and claims the Apple of Eden, but he chooses not to kill the Pope. This moment of mercy reflects Ezio's growth. He is no longer the rage-driven youth seeking simple vengeance. He has become a true assassin, understanding that their creed is about more than death. With the apple in hand, Ezio accesses the Vatican vault, the Isu temple that Rodrigo sought for so long. Inside, he encounters something impossible, a holographic message from Minerva, one of the Isu who existed thousands of years before. But Minerva does not speak to Ezio. Instead, she addresses someone else, someone experiencing these memories centuries in the future. She speaks directly to Desmond Miles. This moment shatters the boundary between past and present. Minerva knew that someone would relive Ezio's memories through the Animus. She left a warning about a coming catastrophe, a solar flare that nearly destroyed the world in the Isu Era, and will threaten humanity again. The vault, the apple, Ezio's entire journey, all of it was orchestrated across millennia to deliver this message to Desmond. Ezio, confused and overwhelmed, does not understand what he has witnessed. He has been a conduit for something far greater than his personal quest. As Ezio leaves the vault, he has achieved his revenge and uncovered the Templar conspiracy, but he is left with profound questions about his purpose and the nature of the war he has dedicated his life to fighting. His story, however, is far from over. Moments after discovering the vault beneath the Vatican, Ezio's world is shattered. As he rides back to Monteriggioni in 1499, his uncle's villa is besieged by Cesare Borgia's forces. The attack is swift and brutal. Mario Auditore is killed, and the Apple of Eden that Ezio had left behind is stolen. The Brotherhood's sanctuary, painstakingly built over decades, falls in a single night. Wounded and forced to flee with his family, Ezio watches everything he helped build turn to ash. But from this devastation, a new purpose crystallizes. If the assassins are to survive, they cannot hide in mountain villas. They must take the fight directly to the heart of enemy power. That heart is Rome. By the turn of the 16th century, the Eternal City has become a monument to corruption. Pope Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia, rules from the Vatican while his son Cesare commands the papal armies. Together, father and son have transformed Rome into a Templar stronghold. Cesare's ambition knows no bounds. He dreams not merely of controlling Italy, but of uniting all of Europe under Templar rule, with himself as its emperor. The Apple of Eden, now in his possession, seems to bring that dream within reach. Ezio arrives in Rome with a singular mission: rebuild the Brotherhood and destroy the Borgias. But he quickly realizes the scope of the challenge. The assassins in Rome are scattered, leaderless, operating as isolated agents with no coordination. The Borgia family has divided the city into districts, each controlled by a tower where Borgia captains oversee their operations. These towers are more than military installations. They represent a system of control, surveillance, and intimidation that keeps the population subdued. Before the Brotherhood can be rebuilt, this infrastructure of oppression must be dismantled. Ezio begins systematically. He identifies Borgia towers throughout the city and sets about eliminating their captains. Each tower burned becomes a beacon of hope, a signal that the Borgia grip can be broken. But Ezio understands that destroying enemy infrastructure is not enough. The Brotherhood needs people. He begins recruiting citizens, training them in the assassin arts. These recruits are not born into the order as Ezio was. They are bakers, blacksmiths, merchants, and beggars who have suffered under Borgia rule and now choose to fight back. Ezio sends them on missions across Europe, honing their skills, building a network that extends far beyond Rome's walls. As the Brotherhood grows, so does its headquarters. Ezio establishes a base on Tiber Island, restoring the ancient ruins there into a functioning assassin stronghold. The symbolism is deliberate. Just as Rome itself was built on ancient foundations, the new Brotherhood rises from the ashes of the old. Ezio proves to be not just a master assassin, but a true leader, inspiring loyalty and purpose in those who follow him. His war against the Borgias operates on multiple fronts. He disrupts their financial networks, burning their war machines and sabotaging their military operations. He allies with figures in Rome who oppose Borgia rule, from courtesans to thieves to members of the Roman aristocracy who have watched their city's glory tarnished. Among his key allies is Niccolo Machiavelli, who serves as a strategic advisor, and Caterina Sforza, the fierce lady of Forlì who shares Ezio's hatred of the Borgias. The conflict between Ezio and Cesare becomes intensely personal. Cesare is everything the Templars claim to offer: order, strength, and vision. But beneath the rhetoric lies megalomania and cruelty. He murders his own allies when they become inconvenient, including his brother Juan. His relationship with his sister Lucrezia is unsettlingly close. He uses the Apple of Eden not to bring peace, but to bend others to his will, creating an army of followers who serve him with fanatical devotion. In 1503, the political landscape shifts dramatically. Pope Alexander VI dies, poisoned during a banquet intended to kill a rival cardinal. The Borgias' own treachery turns against them. With his father dead, Cesare's position becomes precarious. A new pope, Julius II, takes the throne, and he has no love for the Borgias. Cesare's power base begins to crumble. His captains fall one by one to Ezio's blade. His towers burn. His armies desert him. Ezio finally confronts Cesare in the heart of Rome, engaging in a desperate fight to reclaim the Apple of Eden. The artifact has corrupted Cesare, feeding his delusions of invincibility. When Ezio finally wrests the apple from his grasp, Cesare's facade shatters. Without the apple's power, he is arrested by papal forces and imprisoned. The mighty general who dreamed of conquering Europe is reduced to a prisoner, his influence destroyed. But Ezio knows the story is not finished. In 1507, he learns that Cesare has escaped from prison in Spain and is attempting to rebuild his forces. Ezio travels to the siege of Viana, where Cesare fights as a mercenary. Their final confrontation takes place on the castle walls. Cesare, still defiant, insists that no man can murder him, that chains and prisons cannot hold him. Ezio's response is simple and devastating. He throws Cesare from the walls. As the would-be emperor falls to his death, Ezio observes that he leaves Cesare in the hands of fate, not man. It is a fitting end for someone who believed himself beyond mortal limitations. With Cesare dead and the Borgia influence broken, Rome begins to heal. The Brotherhood Ezio has built is no longer a scattered group of individuals, but a coordinated force with infrastructure, training, and purpose. Yet, Ezio understands that the Apple of Eden remains dangerous. Its power to control minds makes it perhaps the most hazardous piece of Eden yet discovered. He cannot destroy it, and he cannot keep it. Ezio returns to Rome and enters the Colosseum, the ancient amphitheater that once hosted spectacles for thousands. Beneath its ruins, he finds a temple built by those who came before, a vault designed to protect powerful artifacts. He places the apple inside, sealing it away where neither assassin nor Templar can easily reach it. The artifact that has caused so much bloodshed, that corrupted Rodrigo and consumed Cesare, is finally hidden from the world. As Ezio emerges from the Colosseum, he is no longer simply an assassin seeking revenge. He has become a mentor, a leader who has rebuilt an entire brotherhood from nothing. Rome stands free, and the assassins have proven that even when reduced to a single man, their cause can rise again. But Ezio's journey is far from over. After securing Rome and dealing the Templars a decisive blow, Ezio Auditore does not rest on his laurels. Instead, he embarks on what will become his final and most personal journey. In 1511, now in his early 50s, Ezio travels east to Constantinople, the jewel of the Ottoman Empire, with a singular purpose: to find Altair ibn Lahad's hidden library beneath Masyaf. This quest was set in motion by the information Ezio discovered in the Vatican vault years earlier. He learned that Altair had sealed away something of immense importance, a secret library containing not only ancient knowledge, but potentially another apple of Eden. To access this library, Ezio must find 5 special keys, artifacts that Altair created and scattered across the region centuries before. But these are no ordinary keys. Each one contains encoded memories from Altair's own life, preserved through the same Isu technology that powers the Animus. When Ezio arrives in Constantinople in 1511, he finds a city caught between worlds. The Ottoman Empire is at its height, a cosmopolitan crossroads of East and West, but beneath the surface, the eternal war between assassins and Templars continues. The local assassin brotherhood, while present, faces a significant threat from the Byzantine Templars, remnants of the fallen Byzantine Empire who seek to destabilize Ottoman rule and reclaim their former glory. The Byzantine Templars are led by Prince Ahmet, son of the recently deceased Sultan Bayezid II, though his Templar allegiance remains hidden behind a mask of political ambition. His true goal mirrors that of every Templar: control. He seeks the Masyaf keys not for historical curiosity, but for the power they might unlock. Standing in opposition is Ahmet's younger brother, Prince Selim, a ruthless but effective leader who, unbeknownst to most, has his own designs on the Ottoman throne. Ezio quickly allies himself with the Constantinople assassins, led by the capable Yusuf Tazim. Yusuf represents a new generation of assassins, trained in methods that blend Ottoman culture with the Brotherhood's ancient traditions. Under his leadership, the Constantinople Guild has developed new techniques and tools, including the hook blade, a modified hidden blade that allows for greater mobility across the city's distinctive architecture of domes and minarets. Together, Ezio and Yusuf work to strengthen the Brotherhood's position in the city while hunting for the Masyaf keys. This involves liberating assassin dens from Templar control, recruiting new members to the cause, and navigating the complex political landscape of a city where Ottoman, Byzantine, and European interests all collide. Constantinople in this era is a place of incredible diversity, where merchants from Venice trade alongside scholars from Persia, and where ancient Roman architecture stands beside magnificent Ottoman mosques. As Ezio recovers each of the 5 Masyaf keys, he experiences something unprecedented. By synchronizing with the genetic memories encoded within them, he literally relives moments from Altair's life. These are not mere recordings, but fully immersive experiences that show him pivotal moments spanning decades of the legendary assassin's journey. Through these memory sequences, Ezio witnesses Altair's transformation from the arrogant young master assassin we met in 1191 to a wise and tempered leader. He sees Altair's grief following the death of his wife Maria at the hands of his own son, a tragedy that shattered the aging assassin. He observes how Altair used the Apple of Eden not for conquest, but for knowledge, unlocking its secrets to advance the Brotherhood's understanding of Isu technology and philosophy. One particularly poignant memory shows Altair in his later years, having become mentor of the Brotherhood, working to preserve everything he had learned. Altair knew that the apple was too dangerous to remain in circulation, that its power to control minds made it an irresistible target for those who would misuse it. He also understood that his own knowledge, accumulated over a lifetime of study and experience, needed to be preserved for future generations. The memories reveal that Altair created the library as a vault, a place to store both the apple and his collected wisdom. He encoded his memories into the keys as a safeguard, ensuring that only someone worthy, someone who would take the time to understand his journey and his lessons, could access what lay within. In essence, Altair created a test that would span centuries, one that Ezio is now completing. But Ezio's journey in Constantinople is not merely archaeological. The conflict with the Byzantine Templars escalates throughout 1511 and into 1512. Prince Ahmet reveals his true allegiances and becomes increasingly desperate to obtain the keys before Ezio can complete the set. The Templars launch attacks on assassin strongholds, and in one devastating assault, Yusuf Tazim is killed, a personal blow to Ezio that reminds him that even in his 50s, the cost of this war remains painfully high. The political situation in Constantinople also reaches a boiling point. Prince Selim marches on the city with an army, forcing his father Sultan Bayezid to abdicate in his favor. While Selim is no friend to the assassins, his ruthless efficiency in claiming the throne disrupts the Byzantine Templars' plans for a puppet ruler. Ezio finds himself navigating not just assassin versus Templar, but the complex realities of Ottoman succession and power. With all 5 keys finally in his possession, Ezio returns to Masyaf in 1512. The fortress, abandoned for decades since Altair's time, stands as a monument to the Brotherhood's history. Ezio makes his way through the ancient halls, past the courtyard where Altair once trained, to the sealed library door. As he places the keys and the door opens, Ezio enters not a library filled with books and scrolls as he expected, but a simple chamber. There, seated in a chair facing the door, is the skeleton of Altair ibn Lahad himself. The great assassin had entered his library for the final time as an old man, sealed the door behind him, and chose to die there, becoming the eternal guardian of the secrets within. In Altair's skeletal hand rests the Apple of Eden, the same artifact that had shaped so much of both their lives. But as Ezio reaches for it, something extraordinary happens. He becomes aware of another presence, a consciousness that has been observing his entire journey. Desmond Miles, the modern-day assassin reliving these memories in the Animus, experiences a moment of direct contact with Ezio across the centuries. Ezio, somehow aware that his memories are being viewed by someone in the distant future, speaks directly to this unknown observer. He acknowledges that he has been a conduit, a messenger carrying information forward through time via genetic memory. The apple and the library were never meant for him. They were meant for whoever would one day relive his memories, for Desmond. In this profound moment, Ezio understands that his role in the larger story is complete. He has been a piece in a game that spans millennia, a game between assassins and Templars, between humanity and the Isu, between freedom and control. But he has also lived a full life, loved deeply, fought bravely, and made a difference in his time. Ezio leaves the apple where it lies in Altair's hand. He removes his hidden blades and his other assassin tools, placing them reverently in the library. This is his retirement, his choice to finally step away from the endless war. He has spent over 30 years fighting, from that terrible day in Florence in 1476, when his father and brothers were executed, through countless battles across Italy and now the Ottoman Empire. As Ezio walks out of Masyaf for the last time, he leaves behind two legacies: the physical artifacts and knowledge preserved in Altair's library, and his own genetic memories, which will one day guide another assassin in humanity's ongoing struggle for freedom. The mentor's journey is complete. Nearly 15 years after Ezio Auditore's death in 1524, the Assassin Brotherhood faces another crisis, this time in the Far East. In 1526, during the Ming Dynasty, a lone figure returns to China carrying both hope and a burning desire for vengeance. Her name is Xiao Jun, and she is the last surviving member of the Chinese Assassin Brotherhood. Xiao Jun's story actually begins years earlier, when the Chinese Brotherhood was decimated by a powerful Templar organization known as the Eight Tigers. This group of corrupt officials had infiltrated the highest levels of the Ming imperial court, using their positions to oppress the common people while hunting down assassins with ruthless efficiency. During this purge, nearly every Chinese assassin was killed. Xiao Jun managed to escape, fleeing westward across continents until she reached Italy, where she sought out the legendary mentor Ezio Auditore in his final years. Under Ezio's guidance, she trained and learned the deeper philosophies of the Creed, preparing herself for an eventual return to her homeland. Now, in 1526, that return has come. Xiao Jun arrives in China not as a refugee, but as a weapon honed by one of history's greatest assassins. She carries with her a precursor artifact, a mysterious box that Ezio entrusted to her, though its true purpose remains unclear even to her. What is clear, however, is her mission. The Eight Tigers still control vast portions of the empire from the shadows, and Xiao Jun intends to dismantle their organization one member at a time. The China that Xiao Jun returns to is a nation suffering under the weight of corruption. The Eight Tigers, named for their ferocity and their collective stranglehold on power, have turned the imperial system into an instrument of personal gain. They extort merchants, exploit peasants, and eliminate anyone who dares challenge their authority. The common people live in fear, their traditional protectors, the assassins, believed to be extinct. Into this darkness, Xiao Jun brings a flicker of hope, though she works primarily from the shadows, as all assassins must. Her campaign of revenge begins methodically. Xiao Jun tracks down members of the Eight Tigers one by one, studying their routines, identifying their weaknesses, and striking when they are most vulnerable. Unlike the sprawling cities of Renaissance Italy or the dense urban landscape of Constantinople, China presents its own unique challenges. She moves through imperial palaces with their layered courtyards and tiered roofs, infiltrates military encampments where Tiger loyalists train their soldiers, and navigates bustling port cities where Templar influence runs deep. The architecture itself becomes both obstacle and opportunity, as Xiao Jun uses traditional Chinese buildings with their distinctive curved eaves and ornate decorations to remain unseen. Each assassination brings her closer to her goal, but Xiao Jun's mission extends beyond simple revenge. As she eliminates the Tigers, she witnesses firsthand the suffering they have caused. In one region, she encounters villagers whose land has been seized by corrupt officials working for the Templars. In another, she discovers a network of forced labor camps where dissidents and their families toil under brutal conditions. These encounters remind her that the Assassin Brotherhood was never just about killing Templars. It was about protecting the innocent and fighting for freedom. This realization transforms her mission. Yes, she continues hunting the 8 tigers, but she also begins actively aiding the common people. She disrupts supply lines that feed the tigers' wealth, frees prisoners from their dungeons, and exposes corruption wherever she finds it. In doing so, she begins to inspire others. Whispers spread through the provinces of a mysterious woman in assassin robes, a ghost returned from the dead to challenge the untouchable 8 tigers. These whispers reach the ears of former assassin sympathizers, people who once supported the Brotherhood but went into hiding when the purge began. Slowly, carefully, Xiao Jun begins to rebuild what was destroyed. She makes contact with these sympathizers, vetting them to ensure they have not been turned by the Templars. She identifies promising recruits among the people she has helped, those who show both the skill and the conviction necessary to join the Creed. She establishes safe houses in major cities, creating a network that can support future operations. The Chinese Brotherhood, once reduced to a single survivor, begins to grow again, small and fragile, but alive. The precursor box that Ezio gave her plays a crucial role in this rebuilding effort. Though its full capabilities remain mysterious, it serves as a symbol of legitimacy, proof that she carries the blessing of the great Ezio Auditore himself. It also contains knowledge, fragments of precursor wisdom that help guide her understanding of the larger conflict between assassins and Templars. This ancient knowledge, combined with the training she received in Italy, makes Xiao Jun uniquely qualified to resurrect her brotherhood. By the time her campaign against the 8 tigers concludes, Xiao Jun has transformed from a lone avenger into a true mentor. The Chinese assassin brotherhood, though still small, has been re-established with a new generation of recruits who understand both the philosophy of the Creed and the practical necessities of fighting Templars in Ming Dynasty China. The common people, while still oppressed by imperial authority, have seen that resistance is possible, that tyrants can be challenged. Xiao Jun's journey proves that even when the Brotherhood seems destroyed, even when only one assassin remains, the Creed itself can survive and flourish once more. We now leap back across the globe and nearly 3 centuries earlier. While Xiao Jun was fighting to rebuild the Chinese Brotherhood in the 1500s, our timeline now takes us to the Caribbean Sea in 1715, at the height of what history remembers as the Golden Age of piracy. This is where we meet Edward Kenway, a Welsh privateer whose pursuit of fortune would accidentally entangle him in the ancient war between assassins and Templars, and whose story would prove that redemption can be found even in the most unlikely of places. Edward Kenway is not born into the Brotherhood. He is not raised with their ideals or trained in their ways. He is, quite simply, a man chasing wealth and glory, hoping to return to his wife Caroline with enough riches to prove his worth. Working as a privateer during the tail end of the War of the Spanish Succession, Edward sees opportunity when he encounters a man named Duncan Walpole during a naval battle off the coast of Cape Bonavista. Walpole, it turns out, is an assassin who has betrayed his brotherhood and is attempting to defect to the Templars, carrying sensitive information about assassin locations and a mysterious artifact called the Observatory. When Walpole dies in their confrontation, Edward makes a fateful decision. He takes Walpole's robes, his hidden blade, and his identity, planning to impersonate the turncoat assassin and collect the payment the Templars have promised. This deception leads Edward to Havana, where he meets the Templar Grandmaster Laureano de Torres y Ayala, the governor of Cuba, along with fellow Templars Woodes Rogers and Julian Ducasse. Edward successfully fools them, at least initially, and learns that the Templars are searching for something called the Observatory, an Isu facility of immense power. The Observatory is unlike other pieces of Eden we have encountered. Rather than controlling minds or creating illusions, this ancient structure can observe anyone, anywhere in the world, provided the user possesses a sample of that person's blood. The implications are staggering. Whoever controls the observatory could track any target, spy on any enemy, and possess a level of surveillance that would make them nearly omnipotent. For the Templars, obsessed with order and control, this represents the ultimate tool. For Edward, it simply represents the ultimate prize, something he could sell for enough money to secure his future forever. Edward's deception eventually unravels, but by then he has learned enough to pursue the observatory on his own. He escapes Havana and fully embraces the life of a pirate, acquiring his own ship, which he names the Jackdaw. Over the following years, Edward becomes one of the most successful pirate captains in the Caribbean, building a reputation through both his skill in naval combat and his willingness to take on any target, regardless of the risk. During this time, Edward sails alongside some of history's most legendary pirates. He fights beside Edward Thatch, better known as Blackbeard, whose fearsome reputation is matched only by his tactical brilliance. He drinks with Charles Vane, schemes with Benjamin Hornigold, and forms a particularly close friendship with Adewale, a former slave who becomes the Jackdaw's quartermaster. He also encounters James Kidd, a young assassin who repeatedly tries to convince Edward that there is more to life than personal gain, that the observatory is too dangerous to be used for profit. What Edward does not initially realize is that James Kidd is actually Mary Red, a woman disguising herself as a man to survive in the male-dominated world of piracy. The pirates establish a republic of sorts in Nassau, a place where they govern themselves free from the rules and hierarchies of European powers. For a brief, shining moment, Nassau represents something remarkable, a community of outcasts and rebels who have carved out their own freedom. Edward thrives here, living without law or master, taking what he wants and answering to no one. But this golden age cannot last. The British Empire, unwilling to tolerate a pirate haven in the middle of valuable shipping lanes, begins a systematic campaign to destroy the pirate republic. Woodes Rogers, the same Templar Edward met in Havana, is appointed governor of the Bahamas with a mandate to bring the pirates to heel. He offers pardons to those who surrender and promises the noose to those who resist. The pirate community fractures, some accept the pardons, others flee, many die fighting. Edward witnesses the slow, painful collapse of everything the pirates built. Blackbeard is killed in battle. Charles Vane is captured and hanged. Benjamin Hornigold accepts a pardon and becomes a pirate hunter, turning on his former brothers. Mary Red, still disguised as James Kidd, is imprisoned and dies of fever before she can be executed. One by one, Edward watches his friends fall, their dreams of freedom crushed by the overwhelming power of empire and the Templar Order working behind it. These losses force Edward to confront what his single-minded pursuit of wealth has cost him. He learns that his wife Caroline died years earlier, having given up hope that he would ever return. The fortune he sought, the glory he chased, all of it suddenly seems hollow. The observatory, when he finally locates it with the help of the assassin Atabai, no longer represents opportunity. It represents danger, a weapon that must be kept from those who would abuse it. In a moment of genuine transformation, Edward chooses to help the assassins secure the observatory rather than sell its location. He works with Atabai and the Caribbean Brotherhood to stop the Templars from accessing the facility, confronting Laureano de Torres and preventing the Templar Grandmaster from using the observatory's power. In doing so, Edward finally understands what Mary Red and the other assassins had been trying to tell him all along. Freedom is not simply the absence of rules. It requires protection. It requires sacrifice. It requires people willing to fight not for personal gain, but for something larger than themselves. Edward Kenway formally joins the Assassin Brotherhood, dedicating the skills he honed as a pirate to their cause. He trains properly in their ways, learning their techniques and embracing their creed. Eventually, he returns to England, where he discovers he has a daughter, Jennifer, from his marriage to Caroline, and where he will later have a son named Hatham. Edward's story is one of redemption, a tale of a selfish man who learned, through tremendous loss, to care about something beyond himself. His legacy will echo through the generations, though not always in the ways he might have hoped. Nearly 2 decades after Edward Kenway's adventures in the Caribbean, the conflict between assassins and Templars continues to shape the colonial world. We now move forward to 1752 as the 7 Years' War begins to brew, a global conflict that will reshape empires. And it's here, in the cold waters of the North Atlantic, that we encounter one of the most controversial figures in assassin history, Shay Patrick Cormac, a man who will do the unthinkable and turn his blade against his own brotherhood. Shay begins his journey as a promising young recruit within the colonial assassin brotherhood, operating out of their headquarters in the Davenport homestead under the leadership of Achilles Davenport. You might recognize that name. Achilles will later become the mentor to Connor Kenway, but in the 1750s he's a much younger man, ambitious and driven in his pursuit of Isu artifacts. Shay himself is a skilled sailor and fighter, born in New York to an Irish immigrant family. He's loyal, capable, and believes wholeheartedly in the assassin cause. He works alongside fellow assassins like Liam O'Brien, his closest friend, and Hope Jensen, a talented spy and poisoner. Together, they conduct operations against Templar interests throughout the colonies, believing they're fighting for freedom and justice. The turning point comes when Achilles sends Shay on a mission to Lisbon, Portugal, in November of 1755. The assassins have been searching for pieces of Eden, those powerful Isu artifacts we've discussed before, and they believe they've located a precursor site beneath the city. Achilles provides Shay with a special device, a precursor box that's meant to interface with the temple and allow them to retrieve the artifacts safely. Shay trusts his mentor completely. He infiltrates the site, navigates the ancient Isu architecture, and places the device as instructed. What happens next changes everything. The moment Shay activates the mechanism, the entire temple becomes unstable. The ground shakes violently. Shay barely escapes with his life, but the destruction doesn't stop at the temple. The seismic disturbance triggers a catastrophic earthquake that devastates Lisbon. Thousands of people die in moments. Buildings collapse. Fires rage through the streets. Shay watches in horror as an entire city is destroyed because of what he's just done, because of orders from his brotherhood. This is based on the real historical Lisbon earthquake of 1755, one of the deadliest earthquakes in history, and the game presents it as accidentally triggered by assassin interference with Isu technology. Shay returns to the colonies traumatized and furious. When he confronts Achilles about what happened, he's shocked to discover that the assassin leadership knew the risks. Worse, they're planning to continue searching for more precursor sites, willing to risk similar catastrophes in their quest to keep these artifacts from Templar hands. Shay argues that they need to stop. that no artifact is worth the lives of thousands of innocents, but Achilles is unmoved. From his perspective, the Templars obtaining these powerful pieces of Eden would lead to even greater suffering under their authoritarian control. The mission must continue. Unable to accept this, Shay makes a desperate decision. He steals the precursor manuscript that contains the locations of other temple sites, hoping to prevent the assassins from causing another disaster. He tries to escape the homestead, but his former brothers and sisters turn on him immediately. In the chaos that follows, Liam, his best friend, shoots him in the back. Shay falls into the freezing Atlantic waters, the manuscript clutched in his hands, and is left for dead. But Shay survives. He's rescued by a Templar named Colonel George Monroe, who nurses him back to health in New York. As Shay recovers, he learns about the Templar perspective for the first time, not filtered through assassin teachings. Monroe and other Templars, including the charismatic Grandmaster Haytham Kenway, Edward's son, present their philosophy. They argue for order, for careful control of dangerous knowledge, for protecting humanity from threats it doesn't understand. After witnessing the destruction in Lisbon, after being betrayed and nearly murdered by the people he trusted, Shay finds himself agreeing with them. The assassins, in their zealous pursuit of freedom and their artifacts, have become reckless and dangerous. Shay makes his choice. He formally joins the Templar Order, becoming one of the few individuals in the franchise to consciously switch sides. He's given a new purpose: hunt down the colonial assassins and stop them from accessing any more precursor sites. The hunter becomes the hunted, and Shay proves devastatingly effective in his new role. Over the next several years, spanning from 1756 to 1760 during the height of the 7 Years' War, Shay systematically dismantles the brotherhood he once served. He tracks assassins across the North Atlantic, from the frozen waters of the Arctic to the bustling ports of New York and the wilderness of the river valley. He upgrades his ship, the Morgan, turning it into a formidable weapon. He uses every technique the assassins taught him, now turned against them. One by one, his former comrades fall. Hope Jensen, the master poisoner, dies by his blade. Other assassins are eliminated or driven into hiding. The conflict becomes deeply personal when Shay confronts Liam O'Brien, his former best friend. Their final battle takes place in the Arctic, at another precursor temple site that Liam is desperately trying to access. The fight is brutal, fueled by betrayal and conflicting ideologies. In the end, Shay kills Liam, but not before Liam triggers another earthquake, proving Shay's point about assassin recklessness even in his final moments. The temple collapses, and Shay barely escapes. The ultimate target is Achilles Davenport himself. Shay confronts his former mentor at the homestead, but rather than kill him, Shay makes a different choice. He cripples Achilles, shooting him in the leg, and forces him into retirement. Haytham Kenway spares Achilles' life as well, believing a broken, defeated assassin serves as a better lesson than a martyr. The colonial brotherhood is shattered, reduced to almost nothing. It will take years to rebuild, and when it does, it will be under that same crippled Achilles, training a new apprentice named Connor. Shay's story ends with him fully embraced by the Templar Order, having successfully protected the world from what he sees as assassin-caused catastrophes. He's become the ultimate assassin hunter, a dark mirror to every protagonist we followed before. Shay Cormac's actions in 1763 had dealt a devastating blow to the colonial brotherhood, but the assassins were far from finished. Just 9 years before that tragedy, in 1754, a child was born who would rebuild what was lost and lead the brotherhood through one of the most turbulent periods in American history. His birth name was Ratan Hanake Ton, and he would become known to history as Connor Kenway. Connor's story begins in the Mohawk village of Kanataseton, nestled in the frontier wilderness of what would become New York State. He was the son of Kenyedi.io, a Mohawk woman, and a British man whose identity would remain hidden from him for years. Connor's early childhood was peaceful, shaped by the traditions and values of his mother's people. But in 1760, when Connor was only 6 years old, that peace was shattered. His village was attacked and burned, and his mother perished in the flames. The traumatic event left an indelible mark on the young boy, who glimpsed a mysterious symbol on one of the attackers, a cross that he would later learn belonged to the Templar Order. For years, Connor lived with the weight of that tragedy, believing that the man responsible was a Templar named Charles Lee. In 1769, when Connor was 15, the clan mother of his village received a vision. She told Connor that he was destined to become a protector of his people and directed him to seek out a man named Achilles Davenport, who lived in a manor on the Davenport homestead near the coast. Connor embarked on this journey with determination, unaware that he was about to step into a centuries-old conflict. Achilles Davenport was a broken man when Connor found him. Once the proud mentor of the colonial brotherhood of assassins, Achilles had watched his order crumble. Many of his assassins had been killed during Shay Cormac's rampage, and those who survived had scattered or abandoned the cause. Achilles himself had lost his wife and son to disease, and he had retreated into bitter isolation, convinced that the assassin cause in the colonies was finished. When this determined young Mohawk appeared at his door asking to be trained, Achilles initially refused. He wanted nothing more to do with the Brotherhood or its endless war, but Connor was persistent. He demonstrated his natural abilities, his unwavering sense of justice, and his commitment to protecting his people. Slowly, reluctantly, Achilles agreed to train him. However, he insisted that if Connor was to operate in colonial society, he would need a name that would allow him to move more freely among the British and American colonists. He gave him the name Connor, pairing it with his own surname, Kenway. Connor accepted this new identity, though he never forgot who he truly was or where he came from. Under Achilles' guidance, Connor learned the ways of the assassins. He mastered the hidden blade, the art of free running through both wilderness and urban environments, and the philosophy that had guided the Brotherhood for millennia. Achilles taught him that the assassins fought for free will, for the right of all people to choose their own destinies, while the Templars sought to impose order through control. Connor absorbed these lessons, but his motivation remained deeply personal. He sought justice for his mother and protection for his people. As Connor's training progressed through the early 1770s, the political situation in the American colonies was reaching a breaking point. Tensions between the colonists and the British Crown were escalating, and both assassins and Templars saw the coming conflict as an opportunity to advance their causes. Connor began operating in major colonial cities like Boston and New York, tracking down Templars and uncovering their plans. It was during this period that he made a shocking discovery about his own past. In 1778, Connor finally confronted the man he had been hunting, the Templar Charles Lee. But the meeting revealed a truth that shattered Connor's understanding of his own history. Lee was not the man who had ordered the attack on Kanata Seton. That order had come from someone else, someone Connor had recently encountered. His own father, Haytham Kenway, was not only alive, but was the Grand Master of the colonial rite of the Templar Order. The revelation was devastating. The man Connor had briefly worked alongside, not knowing their true relationship, was the leader of the very organization Connor had sworn to destroy. Haytham Kenway was the son of Edward Kenway, the pirate assassin whose adventures had unfolded decades earlier. But unlike his father, Haytham had been raised and indoctrinated by the Templars after his father's death. He had come to the colonies with a mission to find a precursor site and had established a powerful Templar presence in the New World. His relationship with Kanyedi.io had been brief, and he had never known he had a son until Connor revealed himself. The two men found themselves on opposite sides of an ideological divide, father and son locked in the eternal conflict between assassins and Templars. Despite their opposing allegiances, Haytham and Connor occasionally worked together when their interests aligned, particularly when dealing with threats to both their organizations. These uneasy alliances revealed the complexity of their relationship. Haytham was not a simple villain. He genuinely believed in the Templar vision of peace through order, and in his own way, he came to respect his son's convictions even as he opposed them. Connor, for his part, struggled with the reality that his enemy was his father, a man who showed him glimpses of paternal care, even while they fought on opposite sides of a war. As the American Revolutionary War erupted in 1775, Connor found himself deeply involved in the conflict. He participated in pivotal moments of American history, though his motivations were often different from those of the patriots around him. When he joined the Boston Tea Party in 1773, it was not simply an act of rebellion against British taxation, but a strike against Templar operations. When he fought at Bunker Hill, Lexington, and Concord, he was pursuing Templar targets as much as he was fighting for independence. Connor met and worked alongside historical figures like George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and the Marquis de Lafayette, all while conducting his secret war against the Templar Order. Throughout these years, Connor systematically eliminated the members of Haytham's Templar network. Each assassination brought him closer to his ultimate targets, Charles Lee and his father. But as he dismantled the Templar organization, Connor began to realize uncomfortable truths. The patriots he fought alongside were not always righteous. The revolution that promised liberty did not extend that promise to everyone. His own people, the Mohawk and other indigenous nations, were being pushed from their lands regardless of which side won the war. The simple moral clarity he had once felt began to blur. The final confrontation between Connor and Haytham came in 1781. Despite their blood connection, despite the moments of understanding they had shared, they could not reconcile their fundamental differences. In a brutal fight, Connor killed his father, ending the life of the man who had given him life. It was a hollow victory, tinged with grief and regret. Haytham's last words suggested that perhaps, in another world, things could have been different between them. With Haytham dead, only Charles Lee remained. Connor pursued Lee relentlessly, finally tracking him down in 1782. Their final confrontation was not the epic battle Connor might have once imagined. Instead, it was a weary, almost resigned encounter between two men exhausted by years of conflict. Connor killed Lee and recovered the amulet he carried, a key to the Grand Temple that both assassins and Templars had been seeking. By 1783, the Revolutionary War was over and America had won its independence. Connor had achieved his goals. He had avenged his mother, protected his people as best he could, and eliminated the Templar threat in the colonies. But victory felt bittersweet. His village had been abandoned, his people displaced by the westward expansion of the new nation. The freedom the revolution had promised was not extended to everyone. Connor had learned that the world was more complicated than the simple dichotomy of assassins versus Templars. Justice was not always clean, and victory did not always feel like triumph. Still, he had rebuilt the colonial brotherhood from its ashes and ensured that the assassins would continue their watch in the new world, guardians of liberty in an imperfect world. Across the Atlantic and several decades forward, we arrive in France in 1789, on the eve of one of history's most tumultuous upheavals, the French Revolution. This is where we meet Arnaud Victor Dorion, a young nobleman whose personal tragedy will intertwine with the fate of an entire nation. Arnaud's story begins years earlier, in 1776, when as a child he witnesses his father's murder at the Palace of Versailles. The assassin remains unknown, leaving the boy orphaned and vulnerable. He is taken in by François de la Serre, a family friend and, unbeknownst to young Arnaud, the Grand Master of the French Templar Order. Growing up in the de la Serre household, Arnaud forms a deep bond with François' daughter, Élise. Their childhood friendship blossoms into something more profound as they mature, though Arnaud remains blissfully ignorant of the secret war being waged around him. By 1789, Arnaud has grown into a charming but somewhat directionless young man, content with his comfortable life and his relationship with Élise. Everything changes during a party at the Palace of Versailles on the night the Estates General convenes. François de la Serre asks Arnaud to deliver a letter, but Arnaud, distracted and irresponsible, gets drunk instead. While he is incapacitated, François is murdered. Arnaud discovers the body and is immediately accused of the crime. With no way to prove his innocence and devastated by the loss of his adoptive father, he is thrown into the Bastille prison. It is within those fortress walls that Arnaud's true journey begins. He encounters a fellow prisoner who reveals himself to be an assassin, a member of the Brotherhood that has fought the Templars for centuries. This assassin, recognizing potential in the young man, helps him escape during the storming of the Bastille on July 14, 1789, the iconic opening salvo of the French Revolution. The assassin brings Arnaud to the Parisian Brotherhood headquarters hidden beneath the Sainte-Chapelle Cathedral, where he meets the Assassin Council. The council is initially skeptical of Arnaud, particularly when they learn of his connection to the de la Serre family and the Templars. However, the assassin mentor Pierre Belloc sees value in Arnaud's desire for redemption and his potential for vengeance. Arnaud is offered a choice: join the Brotherhood and help them uncover who murdered François de la Serre and why, or face the chaos of revolutionary Paris alone. Driven by guilt over his failure to deliver François' letter and his need to clear his name, Arnaud accepts initiation into the Assassin Order. As Arnaud trains and takes on missions for the Brotherhood, he learns that François de la Serre's murder was not a random act but part of a larger Templar conspiracy. The letter he failed to deliver was a warning about radical elements within the Templar Order itself. Arnaud begins hunting the conspirators responsible, eliminating them one by one while the revolution rages around him. The streets of Paris transform from centers of aristocratic privilege to stages for public executions and mob violence. The Brotherhood sees opportunity in this chaos to strike at Templar influence, while the Templars themselves are fracturing from within. During his investigations, Arnaud reunites with Élise, and the truth of both their heritages comes to light. Élise has known she was a Templar, trained by her father in the Order's ways, and she is devastated by his murder. Despite standing on opposite sides of an ancient conflict, their love endures, complicated and painful as it is. Élise shares Arnaud's goal of finding her father's killers, and she reveals that the conspiracy reaches to the highest levels of both the Templar Order and the revolutionary government. The true architect of the plot is François Thomas Germain, a former Templar silversmith who was expelled from the Order years earlier for his radical beliefs. Germain seeks to purge the Templar Order of what he sees as corruption and weakness, replacing the old guard with revolutionaries loyal to his extreme vision. He believes that only through chaos and the complete destruction of the old order can a new, pure Templar-controlled society emerge. To achieve this, he has manipulated events to intensify the Terror, the period of revolutionary violence that sees thousands sent to the guillotine. Germain has positioned himself as advisor to Maximilien Robespierre, one of the revolution's most powerful figures, using him as a puppet to escalate the bloodshed. The Assassin Council debates how to respond, with Pierre Belloc advocating for aggressive action, and the more moderate members urging caution. This internal division mirrors the fracturing happening across all of France, and it leads to tragedy when Belloc, believing the council has grown too weak, murders the mentor and tries to force Arnaud to help him seize control of the Brotherhood. Arnaud is forced to kill his mentor in self-defense, a painful reminder that corruption and extremism can poison any organization, even the assassins. Expelled from the Brotherhood for his continued relationship with Élise and his increasingly reckless behavior, Arnaud spirals into depression and drink. He has lost his adoptive father, his mentor, and his place in the only family he had left. Élise finds him in this broken state and reminds him of what truly matters, stopping Germain before more innocent people die. Her determination reignites his purpose, and together they forge an uneasy alliance, assassin and Templar united by love and a common enemy. Their investigation leads them through the darkest days of the Terror in 1794. They track Germain to the Temple Fortress, where he has obtained a Sword of Eden, one of the pieces of Eden created by the ancient Isu civilization. This artifact grants him incredible power, allowing him to age his opponents to dust with a touch. In the climactic confrontation, Arno and Elise fight Germain together, but the battle takes a terrible toll. Elise, consumed by her need for vengeance, refuses to retreat even when the odds turn against them. She is killed when she tries to destroy Germain's Sword of Eden, the artifact's energy consuming her. Arno, devastated but determined, finally defeats Germain, but the victory is hollow. He recovers Germain's remains and the Sword of Eden, but he has lost the woman he loved. In the aftermath, Arno is reinstated into the Brotherhood, having proven his dedication despite the cost. He comes to understand that the conflict between assassins and Templars is not as simple as good versus evil, that individuals on both sides can be noble or corrupt, and that sometimes the greatest enemy is the extremism that lurks within any ideology. 74 years after the chaos of revolutionary Paris, the Assassin Brotherhood turns its attention to another great European capital. In 1868, at the height of the Victorian era, London has transformed into the world's largest city and the beating heart of the British Empire. But beneath the veneer of progress and industrial might, the city suffers under a different kind of tyranny: twin assassins. Jacob and Evie Fry arrive in London from Crawley with a singular purpose: to liberate the city from Templar control. The twins, trained by their father and driven by the Creed, quickly discover that London is not simply influenced by Templars, but is effectively owned by them. Nearly every facet of the city's infrastructure, from its factories and banks to its criminal underworld and political institutions, answers to one man: Crawford Sterrick, the Grand Master of the British Rite of the Templar Order. Sterrick represents a new breed of Templar power. Rather than operating through overt political control or military force, he has woven his influence into the very fabric of Victorian capitalism. He owns businesses, controls trade, and manipulates the city's economy to maintain order through dependence. The working class toils in his factories under brutal conditions. The criminal gangs, particularly the Blighters, enforce his will in the streets. Even the police turn a blind eye to Templar activities. For Sterrick, London is not a city to conquer, but a machine to operate, with every gear and lever responding to his touch. The Fry twins, however, could not be more different in their approaches to dismantling this empire. Jacob, the younger and more impulsive of the two, sees the situation in straightforward terms. The Templars control London through force and fear, so he will meet them with the same. He immediately sets about liberating the city's boroughs one by one, targeting Templar operations with direct action. He assassinates key lieutenants, disrupts criminal enterprises, and frees child laborers from factories. But Jacob understands that simply removing Templar influence leaves a vacuum that others will fill. So he does something unprecedented for an assassin. He builds his own gang. The Rooks, as Jacob's gang becomes known, start as a ragtag collection of street fighters and disenfranchised workers. Under Jacob's leadership, they grow into a formidable force capable of challenging the Blighters for control of London's streets. This approach puts Jacob at odds with traditional assassin doctrine. The Brotherhood has always worked from the shadows, avoiding the spotlight and maintaining secrecy. Jacob, by contrast, makes himself a public figure in London's underworld. His actions are bold, visible, and often reckless. He believes that the people of London need to see someone fighting for them, that liberation requires not just the death of tyrants, but the empowerment of the oppressed. Evie, the elder twin by minutes but seemingly years in temperament, takes a more traditional and strategic approach. While she supports her brother's efforts to free the boroughs, she recognizes that Sterrick's true power lies not in his street gangs or factories, but in something far older and more dangerous. Through her investigation of Templar activities, Evie learns that Sterrick is searching for a piece of Eden, specifically the Shroud of Eden, the same artifact that was hidden in London centuries ago during the reign of Edward the Confessor. The Shroud, one of the most powerful pieces of Eden ever created by the Isu, possesses the ability to heal any wound and potentially grant its wearer near immortality. In Sterrick's hands, such an artifact would make him virtually unstoppable and cement Templar control not just over London, but potentially over the entire world. Evie dedicates herself to finding the Shroud before Sterrick can claim it. Her investigation leads her through London's historical sites, from the Tower of London to Westminster Abbey, following clues left by assassins and Templars across centuries. Evie's search brings her into contact with Henry Green, born Jayadeep Mir, the leader of the British assassins and a scholar of Isu artifacts. Henry has been working alone in London for years, gathering intelligence on Templar activities, but lacking the resources to act decisively. He becomes Evie's partner in the hunt for the Shroud, and together they uncover the complex web of Templar operations throughout the city. Their investigation reveals that Sterrick has been consolidating power for years, carefully positioning himself to claim the Shroud once its location is finally discovered. As the twins work, often at cross purposes but always toward the same ultimate goal, they systematically dismantle Sterrick's empire. Jacob eliminates Sterrick's key enforcers: Rexford Kaylock, who controls the Blighters; Pearl Attaway, who monopolizes London's transportation through her omnibus company. Maxwell Roth, a theatrical crime lord who initially allies with Jacob before revealing his true chaotic nature. Each assassination weakens Sterrick's grip on a different aspect of the city. The boroughs slowly turn green on the assassin's map of London, indicating Rook control and, by extension, freedom from direct Templar oppression. Evie, meanwhile, eliminates Templars who guard the secrets of the Shroud's location. She assassinates Lucy Thorne, Sterrick's second-in-command, and a scholar obsessed with finding the Piece of Eden. Through Lucy's research, Evie finally discovers the Shroud's location, beneath Buckingham Palace in a hidden Isu vault that can only be accessed through a complex mechanism tied to the building's architecture. The twins' parallel campaigns converge as Sterrick, realizing his empire is crumbling and his time running out, makes his own move for the Shroud. The final confrontation takes place during a grand ball at the palace, a gathering of London's elite that Sterrick has orchestrated as a cover for his true purpose. While London's nobility dances above, unaware of the ancient war being waged beneath their feet, the Fry twins pursue Sterrick into the Isu vault. The battle that follows sees Sterrick claim the Shroud and gain its power, his wounds healing instantly, and his strength magnified. But the twins, working together for the first time as true partners rather than rivals, manage to overcome him. Jacob's direct combat skills and Evie's strategic thinking complement each other, and together they bring down the Grand Master. With Sterrick's death, his empire collapses. The Templars lose their grip on London, and the city, for the first time in decades, belongs to its people. The liberation of London marks a significant victory for the assassins, but it comes with complications. Jacob's rooks remain a powerful force in the city, a visible assassin presence that challenges centuries of Brotherhood tradition. The question of what liberation truly means and what methods are justified in achieving it lingers even in victory. While the Fry twins were establishing their dominance in Victorian London, the conflict between assassins and Templars continued to rage across the British Empire. Roughly 2 decades earlier, in 1841, the struggle for control of one of history's most legendary artifacts was reaching its climax in the Sikh Empire of India. The Koh-i-Noor diamond, a piece of Eden of immense power, had become the focal point of a deadly game between the two factions. This wasn't just any precious stone. Like other pieces of Eden scattered throughout history, the Koh-i-Noor possessed capabilities far beyond mere material value, making it a prize that could shift the balance of power across the entire Indian subcontinent. Arbaz Mir, a skilled assassin operating in the service of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, found himself at the center of this conflict. When the Koh-i-Noor was stolen, Arbaz took on the mission to recover it, knowing full well that allowing such an artifact to fall permanently into Templar hands would spell disaster for the region. His quest was complicated by more than just the usual dangers of his profession. Arbaz was deeply in love with Princess Piara Kaur, the Maharaja's granddaughter, a relationship that placed him in a precarious position between duty and personal devotion. Standing in his way was William Henry Sleeman, a Templar master who represented the growing influence of British colonial power in India. Sleeman was no ordinary opponent. As a high-ranking member of the British East India Company, he wielded both political authority and Templar resources, making him a formidable adversary. His goal extended beyond simply possessing the Koh-i-Noor. He sought to use the diamond as a tool to expand Templar control throughout India, leveraging its power to manipulate the political landscape during a period of intense instability in the Sikh Empire. The assassination of Maharaja Ranjit Singh had left a power vacuum, and various factions within the empire were vying for control. This chaos provided perfect cover for Templar operations, and Sleeman exploited the situation masterfully. Arbaz found himself navigating not just the physical dangers of infiltration and combat, but also the treacherous waters of court politics, where one wrong move could endanger both his mission and the woman he loved. Princess Piara Kaur was far from a passive figure in this drama. She understood the significance of the Koh-i-Noor and the threat posed by the Templars. Her position within the royal family gave her access to information and resources that proved invaluable to Arbaz's mission, even as it made her a target for Templar manipulation. Arbaz's determination to protect her while simultaneously pursuing the diamond created a dual imperative that tested his skills and resolve at every turn. The hunt for the Koh-i-Noor took Arbaz through the palaces and streets of the Sikh Empire, from opulent throne rooms to shadowy marketplaces. Each encounter with Sleeman's forces brought him closer to the diamond, but also revealed the extent of Templar infiltration into the highest levels of Indian society. The Templars weren't simply trying to steal an artifact. They were positioning themselves to control the succession crisis, to determine who would rule the Sikh Empire and how that rule would serve their broader agenda of order through control. As Arbaz closed in on the Koh-i-Noor, the confrontation with Sleeman became inevitable. The Templar master had underestimated the depth of Arbaz's commitment, both to the assassin cause and to protecting Piara Kaur. The battle for the diamond became a battle for the future of India itself, a conflict that would determine whether the subcontinent's fate would be shaped by those who believed in free will or those who sought to impose their vision of order. The events in India demonstrated once again that the Assassin-Templar conflict knew no boundaries. Wherever humanity gathered, wherever power concentrated, these two ancient orders would clash, each convinced that only their philosophy could guide civilization toward its proper destiny. Leaving India behind, we leap forward to 1918, where the Assassin Brotherhood faces one of history's most turbulent upheavals, the Russian Revolution. In the frozen heart of Russia, as the old world crumbles and a new order rises from the ashes, an assassin named Nikolai Orlov finds himself caught between duty, survival, and an impossible choice. Nikolai has served the Brotherhood for years, carrying out missions across the Russian Empire during a time of unprecedented chaos. The Templars have long held influence over the Tsarist regime, and the assassins have worked tirelessly to counter their control. But by 1918, Nikolai is exhausted. He has lost friends, witnessed horrors, and his family has paid dearly for his service to the Brotherhood. He wants nothing more than to escape Russia with his wife and daughter, to leave the endless war behind and start a new life somewhere far from the conflict. The Brotherhood offers him a deal, one final mission, and he will be free to go. His task seems straightforward enough. Infiltrate the Apadiev house in Yekaterinburg, where Tsar Nicholas II and his family are being held prisoner by Bolshevik forces, and retrieve a small ornate box. This box, the assassins have learned, contains a powerful Isu artifact, one of those ancient technological relics left behind by the precursor civilization that came before humanity. The artifact is called the Imperial Scepter, and it holds a fragment of an Isu consciousness. In Templar hands, such an object could tip the balance of power irreversibly. Nikolai accepts the mission, though his heart is heavy. He infiltrates Yekaterinburg under cover of darkness, navigating through a city gripped by revolutionary fervor. The streets are filled with Red Army soldiers, and tension hangs thick in the air. He makes his way to the Apadiev house, a merchant's mansion that has become a prison for the former royal family. The Romanovs, once the most powerful dynasty in Russia, are now captives awaiting an uncertain fate. As Nikolai breaches the house's defenses and searches for the artifact, events spiral beyond anyone's control. The local Bolshevik leadership has received orders from Moscow. The White Army, forces loyal to the Tsar, are advancing on Yekaterinburg. Rather than risk the royal family being rescued and becoming a rallying point for counter-revolutionary forces, the decision is made to execute them immediately. Nikolai arrives just as the Romanov family is being led to the basement. He watches, hidden in the shadows, as Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, their 5 children, and several servants are herded into a small room. What follows is a scene of brutal efficiency. The executioners open fire, and in the chaos of gunshots and screams, the last of the Romanov dynasty is murdered. Nikolai, hardened by years of violence, is nonetheless shaken by the cold-blooded slaughter of children. But then, something extraordinary happens. One of the daughters, the Grand Duchess Anastasia Nikolaevna, survives the initial volley. Perhaps a bullet missed, or perhaps one of the jewels sewn into her clothing for safekeeping deflected the shot. In the confusion, Nikolai makes a split-second decision that will change everything. He cannot save the others, but he can save this one girl. He grabs Anastasia and escapes into the night, the artifact mission momentarily forgotten. As Nikolai flees with Anastasia through the frozen Russian landscape, dodging both Bolshevik soldiers and Templar agents who have learned of the artifact, he discovers something astonishing about the girl. Anastasia possesses something called the bleeding effect, a phenomenon where genetic memories from ancestors become accessible to descendants. But in her case, the memories are not from her own bloodline. Through exposure to the Imperial Scepter over years of proximity, Anastasia has somehow absorbed the memories of someone else entirely. Shao Jun, the Chinese assassin who lived 400 years earlier. This revelation explains why the Templars were so interested in the Romanov family beyond political power. They knew about Anastasia's unique condition. Through her, they hoped to access Shao Jun's memories and locate other Isu artifacts that the Chinese assassin had encountered during her lifetime. The box Nikolai was sent to retrieve was not just a container for the scepter, it was the key to unlocking these memories completely. Now Nikolai faces an impossible situation. The Brotherhood wants him to bring both Anastasia and the artifact to them. The Templars are hunting them relentlessly. And Anastasia herself, traumatized by the murder of her family and confused by memories that are not her own, is struggling to understand what is happening to her. As they race across Russia toward the border, fighting through both Templar agents and revolutionary forces, Nikolai must decide what matters most. His loyalty to the Brotherhood, his promise to his own family, or the life of this young woman who has already lost everything. The journey becomes as much about Nikolai's redemption as it is about protecting Anastasia and keeping the artifact from Templar hands. In the end, Nikolai makes his choice. He helps Anastasia escape Russia, giving her a chance at a new life, even as it costs him his own freedom. The artifact remains lost, neither in assassin nor Templar possession, and Nikolai's fate becomes another footnote in the Brotherhood's long, complicated history. Leaping forward from the fall of the Soviet Union into the 21st century, we arrive at September 2012, where the ancient war between assassins and Templars explodes into the modern world in a way that will forever change the franchise. This is where you, the player, first entered the Animus, and where Desmond Miles discovered that history is not nearly as dead as he thought. Desmond Miles is a bartender. 25 years old, working at a dive bar called Bad Weather in New York City, living a deliberately unremarkable life. He has no idea that his bloodline stretches back through centuries of assassins, and he very much wants to keep it that way. You see, Desmond grew up on a hidden assassin commune called the Farm, raised in the Brotherhood's traditions, trained in their ways. But at 16, he ran. He fled that life, faked his identity, and spent nearly a decade trying to be nobody special, just another face in the crowd. It almost worked. On September 1st, 2012, Desmond's carefully constructed anonymity shatters. Abstergo Industries, the modern-day front for the Templar Order, has been searching for him, and they finally found him. Agents storm into his apartment and abduct him, dragging him unconscious to a secret Abstergo facility in Rome. When Desmond wakes, he finds himself in a sterile laboratory, strapped into a strange machine that looks like a dentist's chair merged with a supercomputer. This is the Animus, a device that can read genetic memory. The science behind it is extraordinary and somewhat unsettling. Your DNA, it turns out, contains more than just instructions for building your body. Encoded in your genes are the memories of your ancestors, every experience they ever had, passed down through reproduction. The Animus can access these memories, allowing someone to literally relive the past through their ancestors' eyes. 2 Abstergo employees oversee Desmond's imprisonment. Dr. Warren Vidic, cold and clinical, sees Desmond as nothing more than a research subject, a key to unlock historical secrets. His assistant, Lucy Stillman, seems more sympathetic, though Desmond has no way of knowing if that sympathy is genuine. Vidic explains what they want. Abstergo needs information hidden in the memories of Desmond's ancestors, specifically those of Altair ibn Lahad, the legendary assassin from the Third Crusade over 800 years ago. Desmond has no choice: cooperate or die. For days, Desmond is forced into the Animus, reliving Altair's memories from 1191. He experiences the assassin's missions, his fall from grace, his redemption, his hunt for the Apple of Eden. At first, it is disorienting, nauseating even. The Animus must synchronize with the genetic memories, and any deviation from what the ancestor actually did causes the system to glitch. Desmond must follow in Altair's exact footsteps, make the same choices, take the same paths. Slowly, something remarkable begins to happen. The bleeding effect, a side effect of prolonged Animus use, starts to manifest. Altair's skills begin to bleed into Desmond's own muscle memory. Centuries-old training in parkour, combat, and stealth starts to imprint itself on Desmond's nervous system. Then, Desmond discovers something even more profound. He possesses eagle vision, a rare sixth sense that runs in certain bloodlines, allowing the user to perceive the world in ways others cannot. With eagle vision, Desmond can identify allies and enemies at a glance, see hidden messages, sense danger. It is proof that he truly is descended from assassins, that the heritage he tried to escape is written into his very being. As Desmond progresses through Altair's memories, he begins to understand what Abstergo is really after. The Templars are searching for pieces of Eden, ancient artifacts of immense power created by the Isu, the precursor race that came before humanity. These artifacts can control minds, bend reality, reshape civilization itself. Abstergo wants to use them to bring about their vision of a new world order, a perfectly controlled society with no war, no crime, no chaos, and no freedom. The assassins have fought for centuries to prevent exactly this outcome. Lucy, it turns out, is not what she seems. She is an undercover assassin, planted inside Abstergo years ago. As Desmond nears the end of Altair's memories, she sets an escape plan in motion. On September 7th, after Vidic has extracted the information he needs about the Apple's location, Lucy helps Desmond break out of the facility. It is a desperate flight through the Abstergo building, and this is where the bleeding effect proves its worth. Desmond fights Abstergo guards using skills he never learned, skills that bled through from Altair's memories. His body remembers techniques 8 centuries old. Lucy leads Desmond to a safe house where he meets other members of the modern assassin brotherhood: Sean Hastings, a cynical historian, and Rebecca Crane, a tech expert who has built their own version of the Animus. They explain the stakes. Abstergo is close to achieving total control. The assassins need Desmond's genetic memories, need to explore his ancestry further to find the pieces of Eden before the Templars do. Desmond, the bartender who wanted nothing to do with this ancient war, realizes he has no choice but to embrace his heritage. The fight continues, and he is now a soldier in it, whether he likes it or not. After narrowly escaping Abstergo, Desmond Miles and his rescuers, Lucy Stillman, Sean Hastings, and Rebecca Crane, go into hiding. They establish a new base of operations in a nondescript safe house far from the reach of the Templar organization. The year is now 2012, and the modern-day assassins are racing against time itself. Their mission is twofold: train Desmond through the bleeding effect, the phenomenon that allows skills and knowledge from genetic memories to transfer to the present-day user, and locate additional pieces of Eden before the Templars can claim them. The team sets up the Animus 2.0, an improved version of the machine Desmond was forced to use at Abstergo. This new model, designed and built by Rebecca, offers greater stability and allows for longer sessions with fewer adverse effects. But the work ahead is daunting. Desmond must relive decades of his ancestor Ezio Auditore's life, absorbing not just memories but actual combat skills, free-running abilities, and the tactical knowledge of a master assassin. What would take years to learn through conventional training can be acquired in weeks through the Animus, though the psychological toll on Desmond is significant. As Desmond delves deeper into Ezio's memories, something remarkable begins to happen. The bleeding effect grows stronger. Desmond finds himself capable of performing acrobatic maneuvers he never learned. His muscle memory adapts to fighting techniques from Renaissance Italy. The line between his identity and Ezio's begins to blur in subtle, sometimes disturbing ways. Lucy monitors his condition carefully, knowing that too much exposure too quickly could result in a complete psychotic break, a fate that has befallen other anonymous subjects. But the training serves a purpose beyond simply making Desmond a more capable fighter. Hidden within Ezio's memories are clues to the locations of pieces of Eden, the powerful artifacts created by the Isu civilization thousands of years ago. The assassins know that Ezio encountered multiple pieces of Eden during his lifetime, including at least one apple. If they can follow his path through genetic memory, they can determine where these artifacts ended up, potentially recovering them in the present day before the Templars do. The safe house becomes a hub of constant activity. While Desmond spends hours in the Animus, Sean researches historical records, cross-referencing Ezio's memories with documented events to verify accuracy and fill in gaps. Rebecca maintains the equipment and monitors Desmond's vital signs. Lucy coordinates with other assassin cells around the world, gathering intelligence on Templar movements. They are a small team working against a vast, well-funded enemy, but they have one advantage: direct access to ancestral memories that reveal secrets lost to conventional history. As Desmond progresses through Ezio's life, witnessing his transformation from a carefree young nobleman to a legendary assassin mentor, he experiences something unprecedented in the vault beneath the Vatican. In 1499, when Ezio opened the vault and confronted the holographic message left by the Isu, he believed he was receiving a warning meant for him. But the truth is far stranger. The Isu called Minerva looks past Ezio, speaking directly through time to Desmond, addressing him by name despite the 500-year gap. Minerva's message is dire. She explains that the Isu civilization was destroyed by a massive solar flare, a coronal mass ejection of unprecedented scale that devastated the Earth. This catastrophe was not unique. The conditions that caused it follow a predictable pattern, and another such flare is approaching. The calculations are precise. December 23rd, 2012. In less than a year from Desmond's present moment, the same fate that destroyed the Isu could annihilate modern human civilization. Billions would die. The infrastructure of the modern world would collapse. Humanity would be thrown back into a dark age, if it survived at all. But Minerva offers hope. The Isu foresaw this second catastrophe and prepared for it. They created solutions, fail-safes hidden around the world, methods by which the disaster might be averted. However, these solutions require the pieces of Eden to access and activate. The apple that Ezio found is not merely a weapon or tool of control. It is a key, one component in a larger mechanism designed to save the world. This revelation transforms the assassin's mission. They are no longer simply fighting the Templars for ideological supremacy or preventing the enslavement of humanity through mind control. They are now in a race to prevent an extinction-level event. Every piece of Eden becomes critically important. Every clue hidden in genetic memory could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. Following the trail left in Ezio's memories, the team determines that the apple he recovered from Rodrigo Borgia in the vault was later hidden in Rome. Through careful analysis of Ezio's later adventures and cross-referencing with historical architecture and modern satellite imagery, they pinpoint a location: the Colosseum, the ancient Roman amphitheater that still stands in the heart of Italy's capital. The team travels to Rome, and beneath the iconic structure, in chambers that have remained sealed for centuries, they find it: the Apple of Eden, exactly where Ezio's memories indicated it would be. The artifact glows with an otherworldly light, its surface covered in the same symbols and glyphs that mark the vault. Desmond reaches out to take it, and in that moment, the genetic memories, the bleeding effect, and the power of the apple converge. The countdown to December 21st continues, but now the assassins have one of the keys they need to stop the coming catastrophe. After escaping Abstergo and recovering the Apple of Eden from Ezio's vault, Desmond and his team need a secure location to continue their work. In late 2012, with the prophesied solar flare approaching and time running out, they make their way to the ruins of Monteriggioni, the very same auditory villa that Desmond had explored through Ezio's memories. The once grand estate now stands as a crumbling historical site in the Italian countryside, but its secluded location and the team's familiarity with its layout through the Animus make it an ideal temporary headquarters. They set up their equipment in the sanctuary beneath the villa, the same hidden chamber where Ezio once coordinated assassin operations across Rome centuries earlier. The urgency of their mission has only intensified. Sean Hastings continues to provide historical context and research support, Rebecca Crane maintains the upgraded Animus 2.0, and Lucy Stillman coordinates their efforts to stay ahead of Abstergo's inevitable pursuit. Their objective remains clear. Desmond must continue reliving Ezio's memories to learn the precise location of the Apple of Eden in the present day. The artifact that Ezio secured is the key to accessing the Grand Temple, a first civilization vault that may hold the knowledge needed to prevent the catastrophic solar event that destroyed the Isu civilization thousands of years ago. Desmond spends days in the Animus, living through Ezio's experiences in Renaissance Rome as the master assassin hunted down Cesare Borgia and rebuilt the Roman Brotherhood. The bleeding effect, that phenomenon where the memories and skills of an ancestor begin to imprint on the user's mind, has grown stronger in Desmond. He now moves with Ezio's grace and fights with his skill even outside the machine. But this accelerated learning comes at a cost. The line between Desmond's identity and Ezio's continues to blur, and extended sessions in the Animus leave him disoriented, sometimes uncertain which life is his own. The team works around the clock, knowing that Abstergo's Templar agents are searching for them. Lucy, who had spent years embedded within Abstergo as a mole before helping Desmond escape, uses her knowledge of Templar protocols to help them stay hidden. She had sacrificed everything to join the assassins, burning her cover and becoming a fugitive to protect Desmond and ensure the apple remained out of Templar hands, or so it seemed. As Desmond progresses through Ezio's memories and finally witnesses the moment when the Italian assassin hid the apple beneath the Colosseum in Rome, something unexpected happens. Upon completing this memory sequence, Desmond finds himself pulled into another vision, but not one from Ezio's past. Instead, he stands in a strange ethereal space, facing a figure he's encountered before in the auditory vault. It is Juno, one of the Isu, a member of the first civilization who existed thousands of years before humanity built its first cities. Juno's form shimmers before him, her presence commanding and terrible. Unlike Minerva, who had warned Ezio and Desmond about the coming catastrophe with the hope they might prevent it, Juno speaks with a different purpose. She reveals a truth that shatters everything Desmond believed about his team. Lucy Stillman, the woman who saved him from Abstergo, who guided him through his first experiences in the Animus, who had become someone he trusted completely and perhaps even loved, is not who she claimed to be. Lucy never truly left the Templars. Her defection was a carefully orchestrated deception, a long game played by the Templar inner sanctum. She had been turned years ago, her loyalty to the assassin cause replaced by devotion to the Templar vision of order and control. Everything she had done, from helping Desmond escape to leading the team to Monteriggioni, was part of a plan to deliver both Desmond and the apple directly into Templar hands. Even now, as Juno reveals this betrayal, Lucy is preparing to complete her mission. But Juno has her own agenda, one that transcends the conflict between assassins and Templars. She cannot allow Lucy to succeed, not because she cares for the assassin cause, but because Lucy's success would disrupt plans the Isu set in motion millennia ago, plans that require Desmond alive and free to fulfill a role he does not yet understand. The Apple of Eden, which the team recovered from the Colosseum using Ezio's memory as a guide, suddenly activates in Desmond's hand. He feels its power surge through him, overwhelming his will, seizing control of his body. Juno's consciousness flows through the artifact, puppeteering Desmond like a marionette. He watches in horror from within his own mind as his body moves without his command, turning toward Lucy. She sees something wrong in his eyes and reaches out, perhaps to help, perhaps already knowing her deception has been exposed. Desmond's hand, guided by Juno's ancient will channeled through the apple, drives his hidden blade forward. The weapon that has been the signature tool of assassins for thousands of years, the blade that has struck down countless Templars throughout history, now pierces Lucy's abdomen. She gasps, her eyes wide with shock and pain, and collapses into Desmond's arms as he finally regains control of his body. The last thing Desmond sees before falling into a catatonic state, his mind shattered by what Juno forced him to do, is Lucy's blood on his hands and the horrified faces of Sean and Rebecca rushing toward them. After the events in the Colosseum vault, Desmond's mind fractures under the strain of the apple's influence. Unable to distinguish his own memories from those of his ancestors, he collapses into a coma. His body is rushed back into the Animus by his team, but this time the machine serves a different purpose. It's no longer a window into the past. It becomes a life support system for his fragmenting consciousness. In 2012, while Desmond's physical form lies motionless, his mind awakens in a place the Animus was never designed to show anyone, the Black Room. This featureless white void exists outside normal Animus programming, a safe mode environment where the machine isolates corrupted data. Here, consciousness persists without memory, without identity, without the anchors that define a person. For Desmond, it represents both sanctuary and prison. His psyche has retreated to this space to avoid complete dissolution, but without intervention, he will remain trapped here indefinitely, his sense of self slowly eroding until nothing remains. He is not alone. A figure materializes in the emptiness. Subject 16. Clay Kaczmarek, the same man who preceded Desmond in Abstergo's Animus experiments, the one who left blood-written warnings on laboratory walls, who hid secrets in the machine's code before his mind finally broke. Clay had been trapped in the Animus far longer than Desmond, pushed beyond all reasonable limits by Warren Vidick's experiments. When his body died, fragments of his consciousness remained, encoded in the Animus itself like a digital ghost. These fragments have been waiting, watching, existing in the spaces between data streams. Clay explains what Desmond must do to escape. The bleeding effect, the phenomenon that allows ancestral memories to leak into the present, has overwhelmed Desmond's mind. His consciousness cannot support the weight of multiple lifetimes bleeding together. To stabilize, to separate Desmond Miles from Ezio Auditore and Altair ibn Lahad, he must achieve what Clay calls a synchronization nexus. He must relive his ancestors' memories to their natural conclusion, allowing each life story to complete itself fully. Only then can his mind properly compartmentalize these experiences, restoring the boundaries between self and other. The path forward requires Desmond to follow Ezio one final time, not the young Florentine seeking revenge, not the master assassin at the height of his power, but the aging mentor in the twilight of his journey. Desmond must witness where Ezio's path ultimately leads, must see the man's story through to its end. This means returning to the animus within the animus, experiencing memories while trapped in a mental construct, a recursive loop of consciousness that pushes the technology far beyond its intended design. As Desmond relives Ezio's travels to Constantinople, his explorations of Masyaf, his discovery of Altair's library, Clay remains present in the Black Room. Between memory sequences, the two men talk. Clay constructs puzzles and challenges, mental exercises designed to keep Desmond's sense of self intact while he processes the ancestral data. But Clay is deteriorating. His fragments are unstable, corrupting, and maintaining them requires energy the Animus system can no longer spare. He is fading. In their final conversation, Clay reveals the truth. For Desmond to fully wake, for the synchronization process to complete, the Animus needs to purge excess data. Clay's fragmented consciousness represents that excess. He has known from the beginning that saving Desmond means erasing himself. The digital ghost must be deleted so the living man can survive. Clay accepts this. Perhaps he even welcomes it. After years of fractured existence in the machine, there is a kind of peace in finally ending. He tells Desmond what he has learned, what he has seen in the data streams. The truth is out there, waiting. Desmond just has to wake up to find it. Clay vanishes, his fragments scattered into nothingness, and Desmond completes his journey through Ezio's memories. He stands with the old mentor in the Vatican vault, watching Ezio address a woman he cannot see, speaking words meant for someone else. Desmond realizes the profound truth. Ezio's entire journey, all his decades of searching, all his sacrifices and discoveries were never truly for him. They were a message passed through time, from the precursors to Desmond himself. Ezio was simply the messenger, living a life designed to guide a future assassin to the answers he would need. The synchronization nexus achieves completion, the boundaries restore themselves. Desmond knows who he is again. But before he can wake, one more encounter awaits. Jupiter, the precursor who appeared to Ezio in the Vatican vault, manifests directly to Desmond's consciousness. The Isu speaks plainly now, without riddles or metaphors. The disaster that destroyed the first civilization is returning. The solar flare that scorched the Earth thousands of years ago follows a cycle, and that cycle is about to repeat. Humanity faces extinction unless Desmond acts. Jupiter shows him the path, a location, coordinates, the Grand Temple, hidden in a place the assassins have sought for centuries. There, the tools to prevent catastrophe await. Desmond's eyes open. His team surrounds him, relief flooding their faces. He has been unconscious for days, but there is no time for recovery, no time for rest. He knows where they must go. He knows what must be done. The final phase of the journey begins now. After Desmond's harrowing experience on Animus Island and his awakening from the coma, the team wastes no time. Armed with the knowledge extracted from Ezio's memories and the coordinates hidden within the Grand Temple's key, they set out on what may be humanity's final mission. By late 2012, with the prophesied solar flare mere weeks away, Desmond Miles, his father William, Rebecca Crane, and Sean Hastings arrive at the location that has been the subject of assassin legend for millennia. The Grand Temple sits in a cave system in upstate New York, its entrance concealed for thousands of years. This is no ordinary first civilization site. It is the central hub, the command center from which the Isu attempted to save their world from the Toba catastrophe. As Desmond places the key into the door mechanism, the ancient structure awakens. Massive stone barriers slide open, revealing corridors that have not seen light since before recorded human history began. The team establishes a base camp inside, and Rebecca sets up her equipment to monitor both Desmond's condition and the approaching solar flare. Time is not on their side. They have days, perhaps hours, to find the mechanism that can save the world. The temple interior is a labyrinth of Isu technology and architectural puzzles. Unlike the vaults Desmond has accessed before, this place was designed as a working facility, not merely a message archive. Desmond quickly discovers that many of the temple's passages are sealed behind energy barriers that respond only to his unique genetic makeup. His high concentration of Isu DNA, the very trait that made him valuable to both assassins and Templars, is the key to navigating deeper into the complex. He ventures into the temple's depths alone, his body interfacing directly with First Civilization mechanisms through touch, the puzzles. Desmond encounters tests not just his inherited memories, but his own skills honed through the bleeding effect. He scales impossible architecture, manipulates geometric locks, and channels energy through conduits using nothing but his hands. Each chamber he unlocks brings him closer to the central mechanism, but it also triggers visions. Juno appears to him repeatedly, her holographic form guiding him forward, encouraging him, promising that he is humanity's savior. Her words are seductive in their certainty. Meanwhile, above ground and in the outer chambers, the team faces a different threat. The Templars, led by Daniel Cross and Vidic's operatives, have tracked them to the temple. Abstergo knows what is at stake. If the assassins activate whatever lies within the Grand Temple, it could shift the balance of power permanently. Skirmishes break out at the temple entrance. William coordinates the defense while Rebecca and Sean work frantically to support Desmond's progress through remote monitoring. The pressure mounts from all sides. The solar flare's electromagnetic precursors are already disrupting global communications. They are out of time. Desmond reaches the final chamber, a vast spherical room dominated by a pedestal at its center. Suspended above it is the Eye, a crystalline orb of Isu technology pulsing with contained energy. This is the device that can generate a magnetic shield strong enough to deflect the solar flare and save billions of lives. But as Desmond approaches, another figure materializes beside Juno. Minerva, the Isu who warned Ezio decades earlier, appears with an urgent counter-message. She reveals the truth Juno has been hiding. Yes, activating the Eye will stop the solar flare, but it requires a human conduit. The energy discharge will kill whoever touches it. More critically, Minerva explains that the activation will also release Juno from her digital prison within the temple's systems. Juno, Minerva reveals, was sealed away by her own people for a reason. She had discovered a way to survive the Toba catastrophe by uploading her consciousness into the global Isu network, but her solution involved enslaving humanity as vessels for Isu rebirth. Her fellow Isu chose extinction over tyranny and imprisoned her. Now she has manipulated Desmond through years of visions, engineering this exact moment. If he activates the Eye, he dies, and she goes free to enact her ancient plan. Minerva offers an alternative. Do nothing. Let the solar flare hit. Billions will die, civilization will collapse, but humanity will survive in reduced numbers. In the chaos and rebuilding, Desmond will be remembered as a prophet. He can guide the survivors and shape a new world. In time, perhaps generations, humanity will rebuild stronger and wiser. Juno will remain trapped and humanity will remain free. Desmond faces an impossible choice. Let billions die for the possibility of a better future, or save everyone now and unleash a digital god with unknown intentions upon the world. He looks at the Eye, thinks of his father waiting above, of all the people who will never know how close they came to extinction. He thinks of Lucy, of Clay, of everyone who sacrificed themselves to bring him to this moment. He makes his choice. Desmond places his hand on the Eye. Light erupts through the chamber as unimaginable energy channels through his body. The magnetic shield deploys globally. The solar flare, when it strikes hours later, is deflected harmlessly into space. Desmond Miles collapses, his body burned out by the power that flowed through him. And in computer systems around the world, in the networks and servers of the digital age, something ancient opens its eyes. Juno is free. And so we arrive at the end of our journey through the Assassin's Creed timeline, a sprawling narrative that has taken us from the very dawn of human civilization in the Isu Era, tens of thousands of years before the Common Era, through the ancient world of Ptolemaic Egypt where Bayek and Aya founded the Hidden Ones, across the Peloponnesian War where Cassandra wielded the power of a piece of Eden and shaped the course of history, into the Viking Age where Eivor carried the reincarnated consciousness of an Isu and established the Raven clan in England, through the Golden Age of Baghdad where Basim discovered his true identity as the reborn Loki, into the Third Crusade where Altair ibn La'ahad transformed the Assassin Brotherhood with his wisdom and the Apple of Eden, across Renaissance Italy where Ezio Auditore da Firenze became the most legendary assassin in history and unlocked the secrets of the first civilization, to Constantinople, where an older Ezio sought the keys to Altair's library and discovered a message meant for Desmond Miles, into the age of piracy, where Edward Kenway stumbled into the eternal conflict and eventually joined the Assassins, through the 7 Years' War, where Shay Patrick Cormac betrayed the Brotherhood and hunted his former allies as a Templar, into the American Revolution, where Ratan Hanake Tun fought to protect his people and witnessed the birth of a new nation built on ideals that would be corrupted by Templar influence, through Victorian London, where the Fry twins liberated the city from Templar control and ushered in a new era for the Brotherhood, and finally into the modern day, where Desmond Miles relived the memories of his ancestors through the Animus, discovered the truth about the impending solar flare, assembled the power sources needed to enter the Grand Temple, and ultimately sacrificed himself to save the world from the same catastrophic fate that befell the Isu civilization thousands of years before. Throughout this vast tapestry of history spanning millennia and continents, we have witnessed the eternal struggle between the Assassin Brotherhood, who fight for free will and the right of humanity to chart its own course without manipulation or control, and the Templar Order, who seek to impose peace and stability through dominion and the careful management of human affairs, two opposing philosophies that have shaped the course of human history in ways both seen and unseen, with countless lives caught in the balance of their shadow war. We have seen how the Isu, the first civilization, created humanity as a slave race and imbued them with the potential for greatness, how their own hubris and internal conflicts led to their downfall when they failed to prevent the Toba catastrophe, and how their technology and consciousness lived on through pieces of Eden and genetic memory, continuing to influence humanity long after their extinction. We have traced the origins of the Hidden Ones in ancient Egypt, watched them evolve into the Assassin Brotherhood, and followed their struggles across centuries and cultures as they adapted their methods and philosophy, while remaining true to their core creed that nothing is true and everything is permitted. We have seen the Templar Order in its various incarnations, from the Order of the Ancients in the ancient world to the Knights Templar of the medieval period to the modern Abstergo Industries, always working toward the same goal of controlling humanity for what they believe is the greater good. We have explored how the Animus technology allowed modern-day assassins and Templars to access genetic memories and search the past for pieces of Eden and Isu knowledge, turning history itself into a battlefield in their ongoing war. We have witnessed how individuals on both sides of the conflict have been driven by personal motivations, from revenge and justice to love and loyalty, and how the line between assassin and Templar is not always as clear as it might seem, with characters like Shay Cormac demonstrating that perspective and circumstance can transform allies into enemies. We have seen how the reincarnation of Isu consciousness in human bodies, the sages, and the more complete rebirths like Ivor and Sigurd carrying Odin and Tyr, added another layer of complexity to the struggle, blurring the boundaries between past and present, between human and Isu, between free will and predetermined destiny. We have followed the Kenway family saga across 3 generations, from Edward's pirate adventures to Hatham's commitment to the Templar cause to Connor's dedication to the Assassins and his people, showing how the conflict can tear families apart and how the choices of one generation echo through the next. We have watched Ezio Auditore grow from a carefree young nobleman into a master assassin and finally into a wise mentor, his life spanning decades and continents, his story serving as the heart of the franchise and demonstrating the personal cost and the profound meaning of dedicating oneself to the assassin cause. We have seen how major historical events, from the fall of the Roman Republic to the Renaissance to the American Revolution, were influenced by the secret war between assassins and Templars, with both sides working to shape the outcome according to their vision for humanity's future. We have explored diverse cultures and time periods, from the Norse warriors of 9th century England to the samurai and shinobi of feudal Japan, from the sophisticated courts of Renaissance Italy to the brutal streets of industrial London.